All right, let's get into it. My man, dude, Connor, what is up? Look at that smile, man. I'm so excited to finally get you on the show, man.
Dude, I'm happy to be here. This is great. Who would have thought we would have been here? What is that, like 8 years ago?
God, it's so crazy, man. You and I, it's so wild because I've been talking about getting you on this podcast for like the past couple weeks. Since we originally talked and originally announced that we're gonna get you on. It's crazy because I grew up with you. I grew up with you, playing against you, and then obviously that turned into playing with you as time went on, all the way through high school. And dude, like, you've been a friend for so long, and never one time in my life did I ever expect this to be happening. Because,
never.
Because you're on such a different path than me, without question. So like I would have never in a million years thought like, hey man, one day Connor and I are gonna sit down and have a podcast together and chat about this crazy fucking world that's happening all around us right now. It's wild.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, like, the stupid mistakes I learned with you. Oh my gosh.
We've got some fun ones, man. We've got some fun
ones. Oh gosh. I mean, the crew that we rolled with,
yeah.
The memories we made, it was, like, I feel like every other day, like once every, like, every half year, that old video pops up and I'm sending it to you. I'm like, what were we doing?
What were we doing, dude? It's crazy. It's crazy because, the stuff that we did growing up, as I've gotten the opportunity to travel and experience more people in different areas, it's wild how much I feel like we grew up quicker than most kids did. Just because of the things that we did in the area that we were in. And, so like whenever I first got to college, it seemed like everybody that was there was like, oh man, we're fucking partying. Like, we're going hard. And don't get me wrong. Like, I'm all about that. But like, dude, at 22, we had been partying since we were 15. Like, dude, like dude, this is nothing new to us. Like, I get it. Like, you guys are here for the first time without your parents, that kind of thing. But it was never anything that seemed like something that I hadn't done before. Right. So like, I'm super appreciative of the times that we all spent and the memories that we made, because I truly, without question, believe that what we did then really is what molded us into where we are now, which is pretty exciting, because that's a part of growing up, dude. That was definitely a big time in growing up. So
you're so lucky, you know what I mean? Like,
truly,
who you just have around you growing up. Like, I mean, I can't choose that,
right? Yeah,
like, that's 100% so much of how we came to be who we are. And we had this like perfect long leash that we were allowed to have a little bit long enough. Yeah. In a bubble, we had like a good safe bubble that we were able to do it on. I mean, it's just like, not even did we get to have drinks that tame, pretty tame, boys are just throwing down, like going out to Limes and being able to start a fire and sit by the bay and drink a beer. It's just like,
I know.
Getting to appreciate that so early is just something not many people get to have.
It's so true, man. And I was when I was just recently back at home, I got to, for my birthday, we stayed at the Marriott that's right behind Limes, and being able to look out and see Limes, like, just brought back so many flashbacks of hiking that beach all the way to get there, because we couldn't take the docks, so we had to hike we had to hike that beach, man, to get there. And dude, that's stuff that I hadn't thought about in a very long time until I got to see it, and it just brought back those incredible memories of, like, some of the first beers I ever had, some of the first, like, real fun party times I ever had were there. And thank God for the people that I was with at that time. I mean, a lot of people might be like, yo, like, you're fucking dumb, like, like, whatever anybody may think, but at that time, the people that we surrounded ourselves with really kind of taught us the way of partying. And I say that in a nice way, because the people that we were with were tame in the sense of, hey man, we go out, we have a good time, but we're not here to get just belligerent, blacked, everybody fighting, throwing up, like, like it was like, hey man, like, we're gonna go party, it's gonna be fun, and then we're gonna leave. Like, it's not gonna be anything crazy. And don't get me wrong, like with anything, of course, there's gonna be a couple nights where things go overboard and things happen, but nothing that was ever to a point of like, oh my God, where are we? Type.
What
thing.
did we do?
Yeah, where are we? So
I mean, it's just like those were such fun times too. Because even when I got to college, I mean, I was already dating Catherine, so like I wasn't really going out in the same sense of what other people were going out for.
right.
But just like the whole scene of going out, staying out as late as you can, getting up and having to do it all over again and having to work. And I was just like, I was like, you're having to yell over people to hear your buddies. And I was like, I see this, I've done this, I've seen, the house parties I've seen. And I was like, those are so much more fun, and I'm never going to get to do that again.
Never, man. I have so recently thought about that and thinking about going, but like people who are like, yeah, man, I go to like, you want to come to our house party, or like, especially whenever I went back home, hey man, we're throwing a party, or hey, we're going to the bar, and I'm like, yeah, man, like nothing will ever compare to those times, which is so insane because like in reality, it probably shouldn't be like that. But we just had such a fun time with the crew that we were all around. Like I'll cherish those moments until the day I die. That's that's truly stuff that's been around and it's gonna stick with me for a long time.
I always feel so bad for people when they're like, "Oh yeah, I didn't really enjoy high school." It's like, "Oh my God, if I could relive 2 years of my life,
it would be high school." Same. Like I feel that often, especially these days where 2020. I mean, even earlier than that, but a lot of people are like, "Man, I hate high school. I can't wait to get out of here, go off to college, do all that." I'm like, dude, you are insane. You are insane. What are you talking about?
Make it more fun.
Yeah. What are you talking about? Speaking of alcohol, we're gonna crack open a couple of drinks here. I ended up buying this bottle of Uncle Nearest 1884 small batch whiskey.
Dang, I never heard of that. That sounds good though.
So, little backstory on this. I was watching some cooking show, and this guy pulled out this bottle of Uncle Nearest, and he kind of, they drank it, and he kind of gave like a quick little backstory on it. Anyways, I ended up like pulling up an article because it was so interesting about this whiskey. This whiskey was originally made by a guy named Nearest Green, I believe.
Okay.
He was a African-American slave who taught Jack Daniel himself how to distill. And apparently that story kind of got brushed under the rug, like most things of that nature do. But anyways, Jack Daniels ended up coming out and being like, hey, like here's the story of like Uncle Nearest. That's what everybody called him. This is like apparently the exact recipe as the way that he did it back in 1884. So I bought it. I'm super excited to give it a try, and we're going to dive into it a little bit. I'm very excited.
So did Jack Daniel's company come out with that recipe as own, or is this a different company?
The Jack Daniels themselves they're the ones who distill it, but they take apparently the exact recipe as to how Nearest Green did it, and then they reproduce it themselves. But apparently this is a very good whiskey because this was the last bottle that was in the liquor store. So I must be one of the very few to have just started to figure it out.
Nice.
But also, you got some goodies there too, huh?
I do. First, before it fades out. Oh yeah, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. Dude, I was
colors with the temperatures.
Dude, I was telling you, man, that is a commodity, bro. That's a limited edition. That's something that not a lot of people have, bro. And will not ever have. So that's pretty exciting.
All right, so my lineup. First, we'll start off with a nice, smooth, classic bourbon.
Little Buffalo Trace action. I like it.
So I was looking for this for so long, and my parents had it for like pretty much my graduation present. I ended up having to like buy it like a package straight from the distillery because like they were just sold out. So that was nice. They got me that. Yeah, I mean it's not one that goes, you should be able to find it. Find it. And then for the podcast, we'll end up with something a little spicier.
I like
Jameson,
it.
Of course, Crested.
Yeah.
So the backstory with this one, it says JJS celebrating the first drops bottled in Bow Street. So we got that actually in Dublin.
Yeah.
And it was like the distillery there. They still like the original one. They still did some.
Yeah.
And that was like a special bottle that they like make from there. So that's pretty cool.
Did you end up doing on that distillery? Did you end up doing like the tasting tour with like the secret room?
Yeah. Well, yeah. So we went in there like, so if you like dive deep in probably like my Facebook, Kat and I, we have like one of those pictures of where we're like sitting at like the big old leather chair, mahogany.
Yeah, man. Well, you know the trip that we just we hit that trip goal. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And the two finalists on that trip was Dublin and Japan. And we dove deep into Dublin, man. We were going to the Jameson distillery. We were going to the Guinness brew house, all of that. We were going to do all of that. I went to like go ahead and book the Jameson tour on Bow Street, take the secret tasting, like do all in John Jameson. Is that it? John Jacks, whatever it is.
John Jameson.
Jameson in his private office, like all like, dude, I was super excited for that, but then obviously COVID, which is a part of the reason why you're here right now. And I'm super excited to talk about it, get into. We're already kind of deep, but for a lot of people that don't know, what is your title? Because actually nobody knows. What is your title?
So right now I'm a resident, and pretty much any time your first year as a resident, everybody's called like an intern.
Okay.
And I think that's just, I don't know how that little differentiation came about, but I'm pretty sure it's like everybody still has that nice little broad intern if it's regardless of where it's first year, because you're kind of rotating your first year into different things as well.
Okay.
Alongside what you're specializing in. But I think it's also like, oh, I'm an intern, so everybody knows he doesn't exactly know what he's doing.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I gotcha.
So you get a little extra supervision.
So what did you graduate with? Like, what is lay that whole thing out for me?
Sure. So I went to University of Florida first, go Gators, and then for undergrad, I did applied physiology, kinesiology, which is like a fancy way of saying exercise physiology. Doesn't necessarily matter what you major in if you're wanting to, like your goal is medical school, but I was like, I'll make it relatively relatable.
Right.
So then went to University of Central Florida for medical school. Just graduated with a medical doctorate. And then pretty much once you graduate there, the process is you're pretty much your fourth year. A lot of it is dedicated to traveling and going and seeing all these new places, all these residencies around the country, and interviewing for them. And then there's this big famous process called the match process, where it's just pretty much just like you rank, all the interviews you got, you rank them in your preference, and a computer just matches you up when the other program, they rank all their applicants who they want, and then you just get a piece of paper at the end that you open up on the day, and it says, hey, you're going here, and you're like, all right, some people are devastated, but
yeah, that sounds a little unfair for the future, right?
I don't know, man. It just is what it is, I guess.
Really? I would be so bummed if you got sent to like a shitter, especially one if you already had like a spot in mind,
Yeah, I guess you just got to temper the expectations. You don't really know how far down your list you're going to fall. Everybody understands it a little. You have a lot of metrics you can go by to see how competitive am I? Can I actually get into this?
Right.
Then when you're going on the course, depending on, you kind of have your very loosely high tier, mid tier, low tier programs.
Okay.
Depending on how many you applied a lot. Like I applied to maybe 60 programs.
Jesus.
And then you want to do, that's like me applying, knowing I'm relatively competitive, not wanting to go to the West Coast. So I was pretty focused in the, Southeast. But some people, I've heard some people apply like 100, if they're going for a really competitive specialty.
Wow.
When you divide it up into, relatively, your high, mid, and low tier, so you can figure out where you're going to fall. And then based on, what interviews you receive back, you kind of end up getting a good idea of, okay, like I'm going to likely be in this range. I'm very competitive for these three, these top five, but if I fall to 6, like I know I'll get that.
Right.
It's like you start getting an idea of what you're wanting to do. And mine was a little interesting in that I'm doing radiology, going to University of Virginia next year for that.
Hype.
Yeah, Cavs. so we're excited for that. But the radiology is kind of unique in that I have a separate program for my intern year, just because I think it's like radiology, anesthesiology, dermatology, these like really niche specific residencies.
Yeah.
They want you to go ahead and do this like year separate of that, so you can kind of get a good round robin of the hospital and like understand where everybody else is.
Right. Okay.
That's just how it's set up for right now. So that's what I'm doing right now. I stayed in Orlando so we didn't have to move twice. Everybody starts July 1st. So I'm just finished my first month, and in the last week or the first week of my second rotation. And just getting through this year before I head off to Virginia to start radiology.
Hey, dude. Well, listen, I want to give a quick little cheers to that.
Oh man! All right, hold on.
Get that bad boy open here.
Go with Buffalo first.
You got ice? You going neat?
Nectar. Well, usually I do have an ice, but I actually have like the big, the kind of molds that give you a nice like big ice cube.
That's what I have in here right now. Yeah.
Yeah, now you're making me all jealous because I usually have that when I left out of buddies, so I'm going straight.
Hey, that's perfect.
I'm gonna do a couple drops of water here. I learned that at the distillery. Opens it up.
Yeah, give it a little splash, dude. Hey man, cheers to you. Thanks for being on here, man. Heike.
Thanks for coming this far. That's cool.
Wow, that is good. I'm a big fan of that. Holy, that's gonna be
nice.
That's gonna be a fun one tonight, man. So yeah. I went to this morning. I was like, dude, you know what? I don't give a shit. Connor's coming on. I'm gonna spend some money on a good whiskey. And then I was like, dude, you know what? I'm gonna go buy a real nice cigar, and I'm gonna cut a cigar and smoke a cigar in here and not give a shit. I'll get the smoke out later. And I ended up calling or looking up a couple of different places to be able to go and actually buy a good cigar. Get some good stuff. It's weird how phased out it seems like cigar shops are now. It's a lot of just like vape and tobacco shops and not many cigar places. But there was one, and it was 35 minutes away, and I was like, all right, I'm not going an hour round trip for my man right now. Like, I'm not that keen on smoking out this room, high key. But yeah, so overall, man, I'm super excited. It's so weird. It is so weird, and I won't stay on this topic for long because I feel like we're kind of running into the ground. But it blows my mind that you and I are sitting here right now, because I would have never thought in my life, one, that we would ever be here. Two, if we did get here and I did do this, never would I have ever thought that you would have put or had any interest in this whatsoever, because I know that whenever you first started watching the streams, which is recently, and I'm super fucking hyped about it. Whenever we ended up meeting up for some coffee and chatting, whenever I was back at home, you were so interested and so genuinely intrigued about how things work and what's going on and how this all came about, and that was one thing that really opened up my eyes a little bit more to you and your personality, because I did not think that anybody, especially from my hometown, regardless of who they are, would ever actually give a shit about what the hell I'm doing.
No, God, please. Yeah, you're like, dude, this guy's a doctor now. He's probably turned into an asshole.
It wasn't that. It was just like, oh, Connor's got his own thing now. Like he's got a bunch of shit going on. I'm not gonna interrupt it. You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing. So I never thought.
Yeah. No. It's interesting because I don't even. Graduation happened. You just kind of everybody gets busy doing their own shit. I don't think we talked for like 7 years.
We didn't. Yeah.
And then I remember Spencer, being like, oh, James. This was I think in late undergrad. No. Like first year of med school, he was like, "Oh, James is streaming." I'm like, "No, I've been talking to James for like 5 years, And he's like, "Yeah." He's like, every once in a while, I'll just like pop on. He's like, "Dude, he's funny. He's doing it. He's playing like his games. Like it's cool." And I was like, "Cool." And then I was like, "Does he know you're in there?" And he's like, "No." He's like, "I'm just like kind of lurking." And And then and then like a year later, he kind of mentions it again. I'm like, God, I was like, I gotta, I just like my first years of medical school were just like,
oh, I can imagine.
Wow, a lot of work, but
dude, I can imagine.
then I hit like my 4th year, and then it was like early 4th year. I remember I was on my ICU rotation, and usually busy, but like you're busy like really in the morning, and then you kind of get everything covered, and you're kind of chilling.
Right.
And I think I was like texting him or something, and Spencer, he just like mentioned you again. I'm like, God, I need to stop being such a bitch about this. Like, I'm like being lazy that I don't know how to use Twitch yet, you know? So I was like, let me just download this. Can't be that hard. I was like, oh, cool. I'm Amazon Prime. Yay. You know, I'm fancy. And then I just like pop in. I'm like, what's up, bitch? And you're like, who?
Yeah, I was like, wait, CD Sleeth, how do I know that name? Like, hang on.
Yeah, dude, it's like 7 years later. It's like kind of ringing the bells in the back, you know? Oh,
it
dude.
was.
So it's just like become such an awesome thing, especially it timed out so well because my 4th year, like I said, is a lot of the interviewing. So you're like, your major tests are done. You don't have any more tests. You're doing mainly traveling. So like they call that like the forgiveness year, you know, It's just like you actually have a lot of time off. So like, I was like, you know, every day I was like, yeah, 12 o'clock, email alert, James on. I'll throw him on in the background while I'm doing dishes, you know. And then like at night, you know, it's in like I'll be like playing video games. If some of my other buddies aren't on, I'll be like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Now I'm happy. I got another guy to play video games with.
And it's so awesome to hear that too, because I know how busy you were during those times, and just hearing like you were just saying, you know, you've got a bunch of time off. And I remember when you first started popping in, you were like, yeah, man, like I'm kind of just hanging out doing interviews, because you were traveling a lot at that time too. Because you traveled everywhere.
I had to do 2 different programs too. So I pretty much was doing like sometimes for most people like close double the interviews. I think I interviewed at 22 different places. And then I think for the ones for this like intern year, I was able to drive to a lot of those. But I mean, it's still like the whole day of just traveling and. But it was a lot.
Yeah, and you know, I know there was one point where you were like, I think you were in St. Louis, and you had sent me, and you had sent me a video. You were like, yo, I swear to God, if I get sent to St. Louis, Jesus.
I thought I was gonna die. I was like, oh, dude, it was so bad. I mean, it's like because you know you get the interview invite, and like St. Louis is like a top 5 program, and you know because of all their research and all that.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, you got to go check it out. You know, I never been to St. Louis. I never really heard anything about it, and I get off the plane, and it's just like gray, you know, just gray, and it looks like it's snowing outside, and I'm like. All right, that's cool. I'm in like, you know, I have like jeans on, a t-shirt, and like a light puffer, you know? And it's just like, that's like Florida cold, you know? And I get off and then like you take this like tram, you know, like public tram into the city and bro, that was pretty scary, you know? Like I stuck out. Like I looked like an idiot on there. Like everybody, you know, city dress, like they're dressed, you know, in black, big hoodies, you know, and I'm like, and I just, oh God, I just didn't, you know, I had my backpack and I just looked like a sore thumb. And then I get off at my train station and it is snowing so hard. Like I have no hat on. I have no beanie. Like it's covering my face. You know, I'm in like a foot of snow trekking through. It's like 500 yards it's saying to my hotel. And it's that eerie quietness and there's like no one out.
Oh,
and I was like,
yeah.
Dude, I was like, someone's gonna find just like a lump in the ground. It's gonna be my body.
I was that's that silent where you're like, I'm about to get murdered. I'm about to get murdered. Yeah.
And like when I came in, I remember this pic that I sent to my family, and it's just like I got like a half inch of snow on my head, like all the snow's like covering my eyebrows. I was like, this is not me.
Yeah, that is definitely not you. But now you're heading up to West Virginia, and let me tell you, bro, it's gonna get Virginia. Yeah, it's still gonna get cold, bro.
Oh yeah, but that's like perfect. It's like that. Virginia's like that state where it's like you're definitely going to get all 4 seasons, but it's not going to be like snowing for a whole month. They have like 3 snow days,
right?
So it's like perfect for what me and Kat want to do. Like we've been in Florida our whole life, you know, kind of same thing you want to do in North Carolina.
Yeah.
You know, we're like, all right, let's go somewhere. Like we like Florida, we may come back. Like let's get out, make sure we don't like something more.
Yeah.
You know, Charlottesville is like a big mountain town. It's right next to a national park. It's beautiful. We got to go up there a little bit with each other, and we really enjoyed it. And you know, they like 3 snow days, so it's not really gonna like press us on our northern adventures.
I will say I'm very excited and super happy to hear that you know that you and Kat are both Kat's your wife, by the way, for everybody that's listening.
There you go.
And high school sweethearts, by the way, which is amazing.
High school.
I remember.
I think it's this. So this December, I think it's going to be 10 years being together. 10
Holy
years.
shit. Dude,
Isn't that crazy?
10 years, bro. Oh my God. That's so insane, man. But I was so excited. I was so excited to hear that. Don't get me wrong, I was a little bummed, especially because I'm up here in the triangle now, and I was really hoping that you'd make your way over here too.
We thought it was happening.
I was so excited. I know you're not too far. I definitely whenever you end up making your way up here, and hopefully I'm still here. I don't see any reason for us leaving here right now. Jess likes her job. Obviously, I like the area. Obviously, I like my job, but I can take that anywhere. And Trey, my my other roommate, everybody memes him, and everybody calls him my tenant. But he's loving his job. He's doing great over there. So I don't see any reason to leave. So I know that by the time that you make your way up here, I want to get into like we talked about whenever you were originally going to hopefully make your way to the triangle was I want to do some outdoorsy shit with you, spend a couple weekends up there, maybe do a little hunting, fishing, like some fly fishing, hiking.
Yeah, dude, I want to get into that.
Hiking,
gorgeous up
yeah,
there.
no, I really want to do it. I really want to spend some time out in the wild and becoming a man that my dad always wanted,
Dude, it was cool. We did, especially because it was like when we went, it was still in that COVID era.
Yeah.
So all the students were gone. So it was like and it's really a college town. So we kind of had all these, like, we went and hit like all the popular trails.
Yeah.
So that, because usually I guess those are actually still pretty busy. And just some gorgeous, like such cool stuff. I was like, I got there and I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted,
Yeah.
We did one where went to Shenandoah Valley, and we kind of were like, they had like a like boulder crawl kind of where you're like right on where it's not super steep, but you're like right on the ridge line and you're like crawling along the ridge line. It's just like the valley's just huge and vast. And then we did another where we kind of went down into like a ravine, and you're like walking along a river and like stream the whole time. I was just like, man, I like how far I would have to travel from Orlando to get
yeah, dude.
Like the closest I think we've hiked like once since we were here, and it was just like a sand path.
It's crazy the difference between back at home and even where you're at right now to something as simple like not a lot of people think of North Carolina as like some crazy mountainous region with like all these wild trails and stuff, but truly the trails here that are within 5 miles of my house are like nothing I've ever seen in my life, without the exception of traveling somewhere major, right? So to be able to get out here and do all of that has been awesome. I'm honestly more or less waiting for a little bit colder weather because it's hot as shit.
You love that. You love it. You love that.
I love that cold, and I'm so excited, man. We've got this trip planned. We're going from here to Colorado. We're heading to Denver. We're heading from Denver to Wyoming back to Denver to Portland to Washington to see my brother, hang out with him, and then back to Portland, and then Portland to Alaska, and then back home.
Is this the trip that you decided on? Like, is this the double Japan trip, and then you pivoted to that?
Yeah,
too?
Yeah, we ended up having to pivot to that because of the COVID restrictions and everything. And everything that was going on. And I actually, I just got a email today from Alaskan Airlines saying that they require 72 hours prior to entering Alaska, you have to have a COVID test done.
Yeah.
I just right before you and I jumped on here, I got in contact with a place in Portland so that like day one, right when we land, we can go and knock out a test. They'll have it within 24 to 48 hours, and then 3 days later we fly out and we'll be good to go. So
nice.
Yeah, but that honestly, one of the reasons why we have you why we've got you on here today is because you have been you've been so heavily into the COVID stuff right now because you are in Orlando, and a lot of the talk that, dude, it's crazy, man. I've heard a bunch of things about Florida, and they were saying if Florida was its own country, it'd be the 4th highest in cases of COVID right now, which is insane. It's insane.
Don't like to hear that.
Yeah, don't like to hear that, bro. It's so wild with everything that's going on from obviously actual COVID itself, and then all the other bullshit that comes along with it, the conspiracy theories, the people who are like, oh, well, they're taking away our rights for making us wear masks and all kinds of just garbage. So one of the things I did want to ask you and talk with you about right now is because is you were just saying, like, finally I have a day off, like finally from all these. Talk me through a day-to-day in the life of someone who's dealing with a lot of COVID patients right now.
Okay, so right now, most of residency, it's kind of broken up into month rotations. So I started off on, they're called the wards, which is like your internal medicine. You're the hospitalist. You're the kind of the guy that's managing the patient. You're the one calling the specialist if you need a consult. You're the one, deciding when the patient goes home. Like you're kind of the central guy in the hospital. And then, so I did like 2 weeks of, like, right now we have 6 teams, like, with residents. And I think when I first came on, there might have been one team that did only COVID, and then they had to open up a second team. So
just because of how many cases are coming in there, or what?
Yeah, so a third of the hospital was like PUI, which is person under investigation, or COVID. And like most of it's under investigation because it's just like right now you have like 30% of people coming through the ED testing positive. And some of this might be like a week off. I mean, it changes rapidly as well. It's just like I don't get to keep it up, in track, or I don't get to keep up with as much what's going on outside the hospital as much, like statistics wise. But so you have that. So we had at our peak, we had about a third of the hospital that was like converted to COVID units. And I did 2 weeks of non-COVID when I started, and then I went on to the COVID team, which was 2 weeks. And when you're on the internal medicine, regardless of who you're taking care of, it's usually like you get in like 6 to 6:30. You get handed off, like you check in on, you're on the computer looking at like the updated labs for your patients that you've already had. You're talking with the night team about any new patients that you got that came in, and you're getting like assigned those patients to take over. And then you have about an hour or so to go see those patients, to order any new labs. And we do another hour of like a lecture, just kind of daily learning.
Okay. And
then you meet up with your attending. So the one at our hospital is set up where you have 2 interns, a senior resident who's a second or third year, and then an attending. And attending's like, the boss, the guy that's been through residency kind of deal. And that's your team. And then after the lecture, you meet up as a team and you kind of just go through your patients and go, how's everybody doing? How's this patient doing? What have they been given? How are they looking? Are they going to need to get discharged? If they're not getting discharged, what do they need before they get discharged? Just like the full picture, like management.
Right.
So COVID specifically. So with that, your main, so COVID, you're kind of broken down into, you have your mild cases, and mild's pretty much like so you have a lot of asymptomatics. We're not exactly sure how many people are getting this and are asymptomatic. I mean, the range is broad right now, and we can talk about why these ranges are broad, because it can lead to like distrust in the system when this is really just part of the process.
Absolutely.
But sometimes there's been estimates up to like 40%, and there's so I think right now is like people are thinking the asymptomatic case are like 30 to 40%. And then you have mild cases, which is pretty much you just have a symptom,
right?
But you're not like short of breath, and your oxygenation isn't a problem. And then you kind of jump to like a severe case if your oxygenation is poor. And what's interesting is that, I was telling you, like, there's a lot of data out there. So like I had to do a lot of studying coming in onto this, because, I'm taught, I came on and my attending, he's up to date on all this, but he's like, all right, this is what we're doing. This is what you got to do. First month of residency, you're just like trying to keep your head above water. You don't really have much time. Like, what's like the weird niche thing for COVID that I can be doing? Because you're like, all right, what do I need to do to just keep them safe? So during my ED, I had some emergency department rotation I'm on now. I've had some downtime, and I got to study a little more on all the up-to-date stuff. And so anyways, they actually register severe. So you have a SpO2, which is your oxygen saturation. So it's pretty much like how well is your body bringing in oxygen and transferring it, to your organs and through the blood. And most people, you know, if it's me and you, we sit, you know, they'll slip a thing on like your finger. That's how you measure. You just like slip a little thing on. And, you know, most people, if we're just sitting here chatting, we'll range with like 97 to 100%.
Okay.
96 plus is very normal as well. And they indicate severe is anything under 94%. And the thing is, what was interesting to me is like that's severe, but like I had a lot of patients that really came in, you know, they were sick, you know, they're coughing, but like, I mean, I have asthma, like sometimes I'll cough, I'll be uncomfortable. But like, I wouldn't say I'm in a severe distress, but like they'll technically be sitting there because they've had lung damage at like 91% SpO2. So they technically, these are severe patients, but it's kind of in this like situation where you're like, but at the same time, like I'm about to send this patient home because they can recover at home, you know?
Okay.
So it's an interesting kind of like clinical acumen that you kind of have to start generating. I don't even know what got us onto that topic. So what we do then, so the SpO2 is a big thing. You know, we want to be tracking what, you know, are they going to need oxygen going home? So a big thing you do like every day, pretty much with a new patient, you do a 6-minute walk test where pretty much you're gowned up, which is like for me, I had a respirator. Then a respirator has like an outlet that you breathe out of, but that actually isn't filtered. So then you have to have a mask over that filter so you don't get it on any other people. And then you have pretty much like a gown that goes over all your clothes. Gloves.
It looks kind of similar to like a hazmat kind of deal.
Yeah, like you don't have like the big like head suit, you know.
Right.
But I mean, that's the same goal, you know. It's just a little more mobile than like a big like Play-Doh dude.
Some Monsters Inc. type thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm seeing patients. I got to put on a new set of those, take it off every time I see it, you know, come out of the room and go see a different patient. You know, I'm doing these walk tests. So pretty much if you're sitting there, you know, me and you are hanging out, you're sat in 100%. If you go on a run, and halfway through your mile, I put that thing on, you know, that pulse oximeter to measure your oxygen saturation is going to be a little lower.
Of course.
So you're going to walk the patients to make sure that they're not going to crash when they get home and start walking around.
Right.
So if they drop under 88%, then you can you do like insurance stuff and call the case manager and they get these people some oxygen to go home with. We've been sending people home with albuterol, which is like an inhaler. Anybody that has asthma takes albuterol often. That opens up your airways. Guaifenesin or Mucinex. That, you know, these people are coughing a lot, hacking stuff up, and that just loosens up that mucus to help them clear those lungs. And you know, clearing that mucus also helps people's oxygen saturation. So really, that's all we've commonly been sending people home with.
Right.
You know, if we're worried about an underlying bacterial infection, because you know, we can get into the medications. I'm sure that's what some of this, like one of your conspiracy questions are going to be about.
Not my conspiracy theories.
No, they're questions about conspiracies. So we have been sending some people home on antibacterial, you know, antibiotics.
Right.
But and that's a big thing that people outside of medicine don't understand is like people are getting azithromycin, which is like you always hear about hydrochloroquine and azithromycin. But azithromycin we're giving and some other people are giving because sometimes on the chest imaging and the way they present, you can't actually tell if they have COVID. I mean, unless they get a positive test. Sure. Right. But some, the false negatives are kind of high, so you can't really be too sure if they have all the symptoms.
Dude, that's a scary thing to me is the false negatives.
Yeah. And they can be pretty high with some as well. So we're giving a short course of antibiotics to make sure when we send them home that in case they didn't have COVID and had a bacterial lung infection, we're able to treat that. But that, still is not something that we're doing for everybody. Some people will come in with more of like flu-like symptoms, body aches, kind of a cough, but, their oxygenation's good. Well, to me, I'm like, okay, well, this person's they don't have a bacterial infection, but the person that is sitting there hacking away, looks sick.
Yeah.
Oxygenating poorly. They're going to need oxygen. I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to send them home and miss an underlying bacterial infection and they never get better and or deteriorate.
Right.
So that's the reason we do some of that. So anyways, you see, I remember we got off this talking about the day-to-day, but So pretty much you go see the patient, you do things like that. You see the patient, you talk through the patient with the team, what's your plan for the patient. You go back to the patient's room, usually, explain things. We call it right now, we're giving them a lot of TLC. People are scared.
Of course. Yeah, dude, that's got to be a big thing.
Like, I'm going to die.
Yeah, bro. Like with everything that's out there on social media and all across everything, your mind immediately goes to, oh shit, I'm going to die. Like I am dead. So of course, I can imagine a big portion of this is just calming people down and be like, hey, listen, like, things are going to be good. Here's what we're doing.
Yep. So, it's just laying it out, be like, okay, this is what we've been doing. This is, you are, just like you want to tell people like, yeah, you are sick, but you don't necessarily have to be in the hospital. Like, we can do this from home as well. Like, this is what we're going to send you home with. This is, how you take the medications, why you're taking the medications. And this is what we think you have. Mm-hmm. So a lot of TLC, doing the walk test that we talked about, seeing if they need oxygen. And then, and then you get back and you do you're on the computer a lot,
Really?
I think like the average stat kind of thing is like every 10 minutes you see a patient, you're on the computer like an hour.
Jesus.
Yeah. I mean, it's not fun at all, but,
wow.
But yeah, so that just sucks. But, so then you're documenting, you're just documenting the day, what your plan is. And then by that time, you kind of just wrap up the day. I'm kind of quick, so I'm at about 2 o'clock. I like to be done, unless you get a new admission. Sometimes during the day, someone will call you and be like, "Hey, you got to take a new patient." That can kind of just throw a wrench in the system. And then by that time, you're kind of just waiting around, seeing if your patients need anything, the nurses need anything. And then at 4:30, you're able to sign out to a team that covers your patients till the night team comes on.
Okay. Now,
and then so that's pretty much the day of like the internal medicine and taking care of there. Yeah.
Now you talked about the hydrochloroquine.
Hydroxychloroquine. Yeah.
Yeah. What hydroxychloroquine is a term that's been floating around for a hot minute, right?
Hot minute.
Yeah. So I mean, we've heard all the stories about Trump. I think Trump talked about it, and then somebody took the wrong version of it and they died. It was like a koi pond cleaning supplement that they had in their house of some kind. But there was just recently, I don't know if you saw it, I'm sure you did. There was that doctor that came out with she had like her full staff with her at, I believe it was in Washington somewhere, and none of them were wearing masks. And she was talking about how she had been giving this to her patients, and everybody was fine. Nobody needed masks. Like there was no reason for any of the precautions and all this shit. And at first I was like, God, like why aren't we listening to this lady? Yeah. And then it turns out, she's like one of these people who believes in like, the spirits or the reasons why.
Okay. Yeah. No, I was making sure I knew. I didn't know. Like, I was like, I had an idea. I knew what you're talking about, but the spirit thing is what, like, I was like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I had actually, I saw something about it on Twitter and I was like, oh my God, like why is this being ignored? And then I kind of got all the facts and kind of felt dumb, but there apparently, obviously, is a lot of promise in that drug and a lot of promise as to what will actually help you out with that drug in particular. What is it? So have I heard correct in saying that it's like a type of malaria?
It was originally developed as an anti-malarial drug.
Okay.
Yeah. So what's even interesting about that drug is like they don't actually even know what the number one mechanism of action is, which is like the AK saying how it works.
Right.
For malaria, they have a pretty good idea about it, and so pretty much with malaria, it's like a living thing, a protozoan. So it goes through life cycles, and what happens with that is that there's kind of these pre-made packages called like endosomes, which that's kind of how they engulf things around them in their system, and how they digest things. And hydroxychloroquine will come into those endosomes and like in that package, and they can change the pH, so like the acidity in it, and it kind of just throws that whole system off and is able to then kill malaria because it's just it's a very delicate system, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I mean, we're delicate. We have our pH on a range of 1 to 14 is like the whole range of what pH is, and we're we normally are between 7.35 and 7.45. So it's very tight, you know?
Yeah.
So if you mess that up and for something else that maybe live at a different pH, it's, you know, it can kill it. And that's what they think it does. However, some of these drugs have things they just like a broad stroke, just call it antiviral properties, which means I have no idea, but it kind of works.
Yeah, but it kind of works. It works on this guy.
Exactly. And like for that, their proposed mechanism of action is that it reduces some inflammatory cells being able to migrate into areas of inflammation. And also decrease how antibodies respond, because a lot of what COVID is doing and a lot of viral illnesses in general, the worst things happen not because of the virus, but because of our reaction to the virus. So it's like we kind of develop a hypersensitivity where our body tries to attack the virus, but it starts attacking our own cells and like parts of our body. So I don't, you know, we can get into that a little more of it, like, you know, complications of COVID if we want. But so with hydroxychloroquine, that's how they think it works. But then you know, another thing you always hear about is, you know, the side effects. You know, like I heard one thing, you know, I saw this like funny meme where it was like, if you don't know what QT prolongation is and can't explain it, then stop talking about it. And what that is a part of an EKG. So when you take like electrical activity, you know, image of the heart,
okay,
and kind of what the electrical activity of the heart is doing, there's a portion of the complex that the heart makes when it goes through its cycle that is called the QT. It's the Q and then the T wave, and where that starts. And what can happen is if somebody naturally has a long QT, or you take too much of the drug, or you're taking two drugs that cause that, well, like azithromycin does it, and then hydroxychloroquine also does it. So taking them together can be dangerous because it's like a synergistic effect, and you can have an increased impact on that QT. And then what happens is if that gets too long, your heart can go into a very dangerous arrhythmia, and you can die that way. I mean, like you can fix that arrhythmia, but like it can be very dangerous.
Okay. Now,
so,
what is the Q? What does the Q and the T actually stand for, or is there?
It's like they're more of just like points.
Okay.
So,
okay.
Yeah. So you have like a P wave, and then like here actually this kind of work. This is wacky. Hold on.
Tim, you got hearts laying around here. What are we about to look at right now?
I got like books. I actually have a book. Well, I'm in my study room right now, so I got like a ton of stuff. Let's see. So, I mean, I bet I could even find what the QT thing is. But we won't have to go through that. I'm just need a separate regular one. Okay. So.
Yep, I got that.
All right, so this is like the QRS complex. See that like little thing right there?
Yeah.
There's like the big up and down jagged.
Yeah.
That little bump beforehand is the P wave. Okay. That is where this starts is the Q wave, the R, and then the S wave.
Okay.
And then that little bump after is called the T wave.
Okay.
And so it's measuring
in between
how far apart.
Yeah. Okay.
How far apart the Q wave and the T wave are.
Okay, and so
what that is the repolarization of the heart.
Okay.
And if you...
Oh, did we lose you? Oh boy. Oh boy, we might have just had an issue, lads. Oh boy. Dr. Sleeth may be out right now. I don't know what just happened. But we are on full scale, full flip. Oh, wait. Okay, you're back. Welcome back, baby. Yeah. All right, cool.
You were left in like and I was like, are you frozen or are you just playing again?
No, we're here. Yeah, so for what people, for the people who couldn't see that, what it looks like is it looks like the thing that you see in the movies or obviously in the hospitals where it's like beep, beep, and you know where it shows like the heart rate and the heart rate monitor itself. Okay, so that measures the time in between the 2 points, correct?
Right. So the QT is pretty much the time from when the ventricles of the heart beat, and it means depolarize.
Okay.
And then when it repolarizes and becomes ready for another beat.
Okay, gotcha.
So pretty much that's the problem. And then if you expand that, it leaves room for error. Okay. You know, that's the easiest way of putting it. So going into the hydroxychloroquine, you know, what's been out there, like I have a couple of notes here that even says it. So that I like took down. The problem that a lot of people don't understand that they're starting to make, they're like, people on the outside looking in
Right.
that are like, oh, this definitely works, is that, well, one, there's been old studies. So the coronavirus, we're all talking about the coronavirus. The coronavirus is not this virus. The coronavirus is a family of viruses, of many viruses.
Wow.
Like 100% you have had the coronavirus because it acts as the common cold. Like there's probably 40 different viruses that are out there, maybe more, that cause the common cold, and a smattering, of them are the coronavirus. So
wow, okay.
what we have is the SARS, COVID-2 or whatever, and that is the severe acute respiratory, syndrome virus. Their first one, this is the second one. The first one was in, I think like late thousands, like 04 to 07 or something like that. And that was in Asia. It just didn't spread. I don't know. It could have had a lower infectivity, but it was a very similar looking virus. And there's old studies with hydroxychloroquine and that drug that kind of looked promising, but the thing is they were never really put into effect because we didn't really have, end up having a pandemic about it.
Of course, yeah.
And also there's been some studies where in vitro, not in vitro, which pretty much means like in a lab controlled environment, you infect a cell with coronavirus and then you give it drugs. What I mean? It's a very controlled environment. They like some studies show that it could have inhibited some cellular activity, some of that COVID activity in vitro though. I mean, so like in vitro and in humans is like a totally different scenario. You can't, I mean, it's like, okay, this has promise, let's try it out. But it just make like, you can't say this the same.
Yeah.
The problem is though, is that issue. There's been no studies that show clinical improvement with people with hydroxychloroquine. Let's see, like I have a study here. There was 3,000 people, a study, randomized study. They saw no difference in mortality or length of stay in the hospital. It was actually stopped early because, you can't keep giving a person a drug if it's not helping because there's side effects.
Of course, right.
There was a massive study done by the WHO that's still going on, World Health Organization, called the Solidarity Trial. Large international. They actually closed the branch of patients being treated with hydroxychloroquine because they weren't seeing any help. But it's not like they have a target on hydroxy. That's just not how the scientific method works. They actually, and to support that, they actually closed another drug that they were trying as well. It's not like it's being treated unfairly. It's just like if it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
Yeah, and we got to move on. We got to try new avenues.
Yeah, so I mean, and then some people will say, that, on the other side of the conversation, that could be wrong. They say, oh, there's been a study that showed actually there's increased deaths with hydroxy and increased intubations, but that study that they might be referring to was kind of flawed, and it was like open label. Some people were taking other drugs as well, and it just wasn't a good study that you can say that either. So
right.
Let's see. And then, like the crazy lady that you get endometritis with having sex with the devil or something.
Yeah.
So she said, so she kind of made it sound like, for how many people she was giving it to, she kind of made it sound like she was doing like pre-exposure prophylaxis. So they're like saying, oh, maybe we can take this drug without having COVID and it'll prevent the infection.
Okay.
But that has proved poor as well. Like, okay, so the latest study I saw, it had 821 patients. Each patient had a contact within 6 feet of a person with COVID for 10 minutes. It was a double-blind randomized trial, so it's like our best. So it's hydroxy versus the placebo. The people that took hydroxy, 12% were positive and or had symptoms of COVID. And then the placebo, 14% were positive, plus that were COVID positive or with symptoms. So you step back, you're like, well, hydroxy, that 2%, you know what I mean? But
what are we
like? The way the scientific method works, there is people that go through their whole lives specializing in statistics that I don't understand. Like, I mean, it's a very specialized field, and there's a lot of very complex algorithms to understand if, even though there is a difference, is it significant enough that it means that drug, it wasn't chance? Was it significant enough that there wasn't chance involved, that difference was because of hydroxychloroquine? And that study found that there was no significant difference. So when you hear people talking about it, be like, if they're saying, oh, there's a difference, you want to know, is there a significant difference? Because the significant means everything when it comes to scientific trials. But then the problem with that one is that the hydroxy group had 40% side effects. People that took it, 40% had side effects.
What kind of side effects are we talking about?
What's that?
What kind of side effects are we talking about?
I mean, that's kind of how, it doesn't all mean they had QT prolongation and arrhythmias, but, any drug it can cause, it can be anywhere from nausea, vomiting, to abdominal pain, to headaches. Like any of those could be side effects technically. Okay. And that's why in the placebo group, you have to have that versus, hydroxy versus placebo, because placebo group, AKA they were taking nothing.
Yeah, just like sugar pills or something, right?
Yeah, they still had 16% side effects.
Really?
So that's why you have to have that placebo group there, because the mind is just so freaking powerful.
It is. It's crazy.
And people can create their own. They could have been miscontributing it to COVID, But 40% to 16%, that's like a massive difference.
Of course, that's a crazy difference.
So going over hydroxy, those are all the most up-to-date studies that I saw that were available. And it's just, and the thing, and then what the thing is too, is that the people that are like, oh, hydroxy, the thing is that we can go over what we're giving them now, but like, nothing really works. Like we don't have a cure. Like nothing works well at all.
I don't know how deep you are in on this matter, but dude, how much further out are we from having even remotely a cure or something that gives us hope? How much further out do you think we are?
We're not going to have a cure. Period. I don't think we're going to have a cure.
Really?
Okay, so and then let's take a step back again. So I tried thinking on this for a week, and then I've asked all the doctors that have been around me in the hospital just so I can make sure. But I'm pretty sure there's only one virus that we even have a cure for. We don't have cures for viruses. We have things to help us get over them.
Right.
The viruses that we have a cure for, and with the past 10 years, is Harvoni. That's like the brand name, and that treats hepatitis C.
Okay.
For liver cirrhosis.
Yeah. That's what my pop had.
And it has about a 95% cure rate. The next best thing we have is HIV drugs. That's come a long way. But it's not a cure. It's to make sure people live a lot longer.
Yeah.
But other than that, like we just don't have a cure. The best we have for COVID is kind of like what we have for the flu, which is like, it's called oseltamivir. And the best that does, if you start it early enough, instead of having the flu for 5 days, you have the flu for 3 days. That's the best outcome. You just have it less. So the remdesivir drug. So the big drugs that we're giving right now that have like the best data is dexamethasone, which is just steroids, common drug, been around forever, works on a lot of things.
Right.
And remdesivir. Remdesivir is like your true antiviral drug. That's what it does. And that is pretty much like what we have is like the best study showed that instead of a patient having this for 15 days, they had it for 11 days.
Damn.
Yeah. It didn't decrease mortality overall. It didn't change people dying.
God.
It did decrease the amount of patients that needed extra oxygen. Mm-hmm. So that's good. But the thing is, this drug is only good for people with lower acuity. Like if you're in the ICU, this drug's not doing anything for you. This is for the people that are floating that boat on needing oxygen or not, or they, or like that we talked about how we went over how you figure that out.
Yeah.
It decreases how long those people are sick for, and if they're going to need oxygen or not. So, and then dexamethasone, that's kind of on the flip side, that has shown to be proven actually more beneficial for people that are severely, very critical, intubated, ICU. And what that did, it showed a decrease in mortality, like your 28-day mortality. So, but it's still, the thing is like in that study of critically ill patients, it was 24% placebo, and then the people that received dexamethasone was like 21%.
Damn.
So it's just like, it's just like, it's not so that's what the reason, like the hydroxy thing, it doesn't make any damn sense, because it's like, we'd be using everything we have. Like we're throwing so many darts at the board, and it's just like, this is a viral drug or a virus that, in general, we just don't have good antivirals for.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not that, everybody's got a target on hydroxy. Like it just doesn't work because nothing works.
Yeah. So I mean, essentially, what I'm getting from this is everyone's gonna have to catch it at some point, right?
Well, but then, okay, so a cure is different than a vaccine, but like a
Yeah.
vaccine is what we hopefully will need. I don't have the most up to date stuff on that,
Yeah.
but I mean, just because there's nothing really coming out. But I mean, I've heard from what I've read, it's on like the path to getting that through is on like a really record pace, which is good. Hopefully, start human trials. I don't know if that's starting now or they're saying like in October maybe.
Mm.
Which I mean is just I mean they're doing the best they can.
Yeah. As quick as they can too, I would
And as
hope.
quick as they can, yeah. And it's just I mean that is definitely doable. Like I do not doubt that we could create a good vaccine for it, but I just don't know how long that's going to take. And that is going to be what we need right now. We're just needing to pretty much bridge to that.
Yeah, just something to just stop the bleeding, essentially. Like just
Yeah,
let it
yeah.
let us get a break, man. Let us be able to travel and go out without masks. But with all of this that's happening right now, I think we're seeing a major shift and a major change in the way that we interact in society every single day. Like I personally don't see us, except for the the naysayers and the people who don't believe that this thing is real. I don't see us deviating from the mask and social distancing path for a long time. I don't know how long that is, but me personally, like for someone like me, first and foremost, if I pre-pandemic, pre any of this ever happening, even me, I felt uncomfortable if someone was within 6 feet of me that didn't need to be. Like, dude, if I'm ordering coffee, you don't need to be in my fucking back pocket, bro. Like, you don't need to be there, right? And but obviously situations change. You're at bars, like obviously we go out and we do things like that. But overall, I don't see us transitioning from mask to no mask within the next 2 to 5 years. I mean, that could be totally wrong, but for someone like me, unless that vaccine comes out and it comes out quick and shows really really positive results, I'm gonna be a mask guy no matter where I go. I'm gonna keep the 6 feet like I always did in the past, anyways. Okay, maybe not 6 feet, but keep a good distance.
Yeah.
Regardless of what happens, just because of everything that's happened up to date now. Like that shit scares me.
Yeah, I mean, dude, I mean that is, I don't know who the hell knows. That definitely is gonna. My bet would be on, when does the vaccine come out and when do we get a good one?
Yeah.
I mean, once we get that out, I mean, I think, I mean, everybody's gonna have their own individual thing, but as a whole, people are gonna say, hell yeah, I'm done.
Of course, and that is such the American way, right? Like once we got it, all right, cool, it's over, it's gone.
Yeah.
But I thought I thought it was really funny where I saw a meme that was like, how American of us to be bored of the coronavirus, therefore it's gone. Therefore, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, all right, cool. Yeah, no, I'm over this. It's not a thing anymore. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, it's just like hard because like when I was looking at it, like my thought was, if we don't do it right the first time, we're just like simply never going to get rid of it,
Right.
Because like the first time you have people that are scared, you have people that are focused, you have people that are willing to listen for this first go because everybody's fresh, you know what I mean? Everybody's like I can bunker down, I can do this, but then when it, if you don't do it right that first time, it's just like you're not gonna be able to corral everybody else because there's gonna be so many people that are sick of it, and they're gonna say, oh, it didn't work, like that none of that worked, it's spreading anyways, you know what I mean? It's gonna be done,
Right.
And that's kind of like the point we've gotten to now. Some states have done well where the little 1 to 2 months they did shut down, they were able to keep it reduced. But I mean, here it was just like, phase 1 they let bars be open, and I was just like, oh my God.
Jesus, I know, man.
And that's kind of where one of the breakouts started. That's where Kristen didn't go to the bar, but that's my sister, so she's in Jack's, and one of the first breakouts when they're reopening was the Jack's Beach bars, and she's in Jacksonville with her boyfriend, and one of some of their friends went to the bar, and then then I think like that later that weekend they hung out with those people, and they end up getting Kristen. And Kristen was on the COVID ICU unit in Seattle and never got it. And I was like, God dang, like that
Jesus,
sucks.
that's
Yeah.
crazy. So what has she been doing? Is she clear of it now? Is she still?
Yeah, I mean it's been a while, so she still can't smell. It's been 4 weeks.
I did not. By the way, I did not know that Kristen got. That your sister got. Holy hell!
Yeah.
Were you guys? Were you guys really worried?
Feelings. I mean, with her being young, and like having no comorbidities, I mean, I wasn't necessarily worried. But she felt like shit and had flu-like symptoms for like a week or so. But like she's been 4 weeks. She still can't smell a damn thing.
That is crazy. Is that something that, because obviously that is one of the side effects for getting COVID is losing that sense of smell. Over time, does that come back?
Yeah, I mean, well, with her, so I was looking that up. It's how specific. Like this is a one that I personally have struggled with because I've had I have sinus issues. I take medicine, steroid spray, already.
And so have for a long time.
Yeah, so it's not unusual for me to just clamp down and I just can't breathe through my nose. So technically I can't smell anything.
Yeah.
So like I had an episode of that on Monday and I was like, oh my God, but I was like, I can't smell anything. But so like I could still, like if I stuck a vinegar bottle, kind of close, I was like, I can smell that. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
But then, I took my medication and then it opened back up and I could smell. I was like, okay, so that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
That's probably not COVID. That's probably just me.
Just your body, right?
For my sister, she's like breathing through her nose and she just can't smell.
Dude, that is scary.
And most, and I think they don't really, they're coming out with the stats right now still, but I've seen anywhere from like 50 to 30% of people get they call it anosmia, not being able to smell, and most say that like they get it back within 4 weeks. So if they're saying 4 weeks, that means there's probably outliers, and there's probably people that aren't getting it back for a couple months.
Yeah.
So,
wow. That's.
I mean, I'm not worried. I think she'll get it back.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's still pretty weird
because she is in that quote that age group of the people who quote should not be getting it, or if they do get it, beat it relatively quickly. Correct.
Right. I mean, it's age. Age is definitely a factor, and it kind of goes hand in hand with your comorbidities.
Yeah.
So are you obese? Are you smoking cigarettes? Are you diabetic? Or
right.
you have kidney issues? So obviously, she doesn't have any of those. And like I saw one study where they did, I think it was out of like South Korea. There was like 385 people that died of COVID. They went across all the studies that were for people that died. And I think only 3 of them didn't have a comorbidity. So it's like that plays a major role in that. So that's the reason. I mean, like, I know she got it, but I mean, I was like, gosh, I mean, I think she'll be fine.
Right.
She wasn't having any shortness of breath. She wasn't struggling to breathe. And that's kind of the main thing you're kind of concerned about.
Right. And that is that. What's crazy is those symptoms. I feel like they can come up in everyday life with anything that you do, which can really fucking terrify. Like, bro, if I sprint up these stairs, I'm like, oh my god, did I catch it? Like, I just went and got coffee, I was in contact with people, oh my god, like I just walked up these stairs and I'm like, Jesus, I'm puffing and puffing, so those symptoms are super common in a lot of people's everyday life. One of the things that I did want to talk with you about in specific is you talk about the underlying conditions that people already have. And a big argument and a big topic that a lot of people have been talking about here recently with everything that's happening with COVID is, a lot of it has to do with, because I've read where a lot of obese people are getting it, right? And one of the things that, doctors obviously aren't prescribing per se pre-COVID and all this stuff is exercise and taking care of your body as well as sleeping. And I'm not one to say that I'm like the fittest dude or by any means anything like that. But as of late pre-COVID, I started to take my body into consideration, which is something that I've never done in the past.
Sure.
Where I've been. Never done in the past willingly is what I mean by that. I always played sports. You and I always grew up playing sports and running and doing all the workouts, and they always fucking sucked, and I always hated it, and I vowed I would never do it again after sports. But
Yeah.
as I grew older, obviously I was like, maybe I need to be taking care of this thing. Like I only get one body, right? So it's time for me to be able to be able to realize that, hey man, like you do only get one of these. Maybe not fuck it up, right? Maybe start trying to take care of it a little bit. So eating healthy and working out has been a regiment, especially here recently with the way that things have been going. Has been a daily regiment in my everyday life. But the one of the things that I do want to talk with you about on that note is how many patients are you seeing, you in particular, that have that are obese and that aren't taking care of their body, and how much of a role is COVID playing on people like that who aren't taking care of themselves?
Yeah, I mean, well, from the data, I mean, the risk factors, kind of have it there. I mean, you have some things where could they have avoided it? I don't know. Chronic kidney disease, but a lot of things are like COPD you get from smoking cigarettes. Smoking cigarettes is obviously a big one. Hypertension, but like that kind of comes with obesity. I mean, a lot of people can't prevent hypertension.
Yeah.
Obesity. I mean, these are pretty major risk factors, and I can get into my theory on.
Yeah, please do.
Theory, I think it's an idea.
Please do. Yeah.
But for me, yeah, I mean, like sick people, like I've never worked in ICU, so I didn't ever see any critical patients.
Mm-hmm.
But anybody that was young was obese. And young, I had some like late 30s, that were having some breathing difficulties. But I'd say the majority were like over 60. That were, so they had the age factor more. But when I was on my little 2-week stint, the worst case we had was like a guy that was pretty much coming in crashing. I think he was 39 years old and just a big man.
Really?
You know what I mean? Just very heavy set. Yeah, I think
very overweight is what you're trying to say.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think his BMI was like 45. So I mean, he was very overweight.
Yeah,
he was obese. Yeah. So and so you see that and you hear about the risk factors and you're like, well, I wonder if that was the problem.
Right.
So one that's like kind of the most glaring thing. And the idea behind some of this, and one of the severe complications of COVID is cytokine storms, or they're called cytokine release syndrome.
Okay.
And it kind of goes back to what we were saying about these viral illnesses, and it's not necessarily the virus that's causing it, but our own bodies. So cytokines is an inflammatory product of our body.
Okay.
And if what's happening is that the virus, it can kind of come through and it activates that inflammatory process at a very high level, more than it kind of overactivates the body. And that can start damaging your own cells. That can play into ARDS, which is acute respiratory distress syndrome. You'll see those cytokine storm, ARDS. It's a kind of a common one thrown around. And that is kind of what kills people, is the ARDS and the cytokine storms. It's not really in the literature much, but we're kind of seeing around day 3. Me and my attending, like that's kind of how we talk, is like around day 3, 4. It seems like some of those patients, if they're going to get bad, it'll be around 3, 4, and then some people kind of stabilizing and then getting bad again about day 10. So, and possibly those are when these like cytokine storms are happening. And we have about 5 different labs that we draw on patients every other day to track if they're getting more and more inflamed. And so that inflammation plays a big role in like very sick people.
Right.
And the problem is that obesity, being obese, not being sick, even if you're obese and didn't smoke, didn't have any other health problems, there's data that shows that being obese, you're going to have at baseline, you're going to have an inflamed body. You're going to have more inflammatory markers.
Right.
So it does. So it's kind of like the idea of, well, if your body's already naturally inflamed, then it doesn't take that much more to really get you off the deep end versus somebody who doesn't,
who works out and takes care of everything. Right. Yeah. Which would make a lot of sense, because you're already starting at that deficit. Like you're already not helping yourself.
Right.
God, that to me blows my mind, because again, I touched on it a little bit before. This is not, taking care of my body has never been a priority, right?
Yeah.
I definitely,
True.
and I definitely used to, and I still do from time to time, subscribe to the fact of like, I'm going to go out and drink, I'm going to go out and party, I'm going to eat whatever I
Mhm.
want, the late night meals, whatever it may be, right? And that's just kind of the way that things had worked for me, and it had nothing to do with the coronavirus or nothing to do with COVID or anything that
Right.
happened with this. But whenever I got up to this house, up to this place in North Carolina, I was like, hey, listen, I'm gonna take a step back. I'm gonna actually look at myself and go, hey, man, I need to start taking care of things. I need to start really making things happen. And I've noticed that and knock on wood, I don't want to jinx anything, but generally speaking, whenever I move or whenever I travel. And obviously based on season, I can tell the difference in my body, whether it being 100% or, down some percentage or percentiles where I feel like I get sick depending on the month, right? Depending on the season. And
Mhm.
I've noticed that as I've started to take care of my body a little bit more, it takes care of me. Right. So,
Yeah.
like generally speaking, I would get sick in February, right? That little stint of sickness that kind of everybody goes through. Well, around that time
Yeah.
was when
With
I had
the coronavirus.
right, perfect timing. But that was when I had been traveling before that, obviously a bunch. I had been to it. I had been to Atlanta right before.
Yep.
Obviously I'd
Yeah.
been
Probably.
on all the plane flights prior to coming up here before it was ever really made national news, and that was right around the time that I really started trying to take care of my body. And again, I'm not the guy. I'm not some fucking yoked dude who's like, yeah, man, you got to eat healthy. But I try my hardest to eat well and limit the alcohol consumption, right? So like this is a big
Hey.
thing. This is a big thing. But
Huge.
in moderation, things are good, right?
Yeah.
So I've really tried to limit my drinking to maybe two times at max a week.
Yeah.
And now, granted, again, I'm not perfect, and things kind of go off the hinges. Maybe I go 3 times a week.
Maybe you feel frisky.
It's the way things are. But with that being said, immediately after all of that happens, I buckle down and we get back to eating healthy. So I do try and eat as well as I can throughout the week and maintain a workout regimen. And by no means am I saying anything that I'm going crazy hard, but I write down every day, or I write down on Sunday what I'm gonna do for the week. And
Mhm.
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all the way through the end of the week, I have a regiment that needs to be taken care of. And I feel that as if I write it out, I feel like I knock it out, right? Like
Yeah.
I almost have this feeling of like, if I write it down and I don't do it, I get on myself and I'm like, damn, man, like you wrote that, like you spent the time to write that down. Like,
Yeah.
how could you not do that, right? And
Yeah.
that'll kind of kick shit into gear and get you out there. But so yeah, I've tried to maintain a real, not strict schedule, but a real regular schedule of what I'm doing to work out and to maintain the body. But with that being said, am I going on like last Saturday, bro? Last Saturday I got hammered and I pounded a pizza. Did I feel like a piece of shit? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. That night, absolutely not. Next morning, okay, I felt terrible. Like, all right, so but
Yeah. Yeah.
that kind of thing starts to motivate you in a sense of like, all right, man, you were a piece of shit the last night before. Let's really get after it today. Like, let's really
Okay.
make the week happen. But a lot of people don't think about that. A lot of people don't have that same mindset, and it's just what, I'm gonna get. Even if it has nothing to do with alcohol, it's just I'm just gonna eat like a pile of garbage all week, every day, no matter what.
Yeah.
And I feel like nobody's really talking about that. I feel as though that's kind of like swept under the rug, and it's more of just like this person has COVID, and it's not that okay, well this guy was eating McDonald's for 2 meals a day every day for 10 years. Like,
Yeah.
so of course they're going to be at a little bit more of a risk, as opposed to, all right, well, this guy wasn't doing that. It did none of that matter. It's just, here's COVID. Here it is. He's got it, or he or she has got it. And I just really feel that it really kind of sucks to not hear the full scope of things, right? And I understand that you can't talk about everything with every single patient about everybody that might have contracted COVID, but that is one thing that I feel like is not being talked about enough.
Yeah, I mean, in general, even before COVID, it probably it wasn't, what I mean?
Yeah.
Everybody, you hear on the news, but the thing is, and you hear a lot of people about, they're like, oh, the doctors, they just want to give you the medicine. They don't okay, well, background on myself. I have my personal mantra is, I pretty much, I live by it, influenced a lot by my dad. And it's pretty much the key to success: eat, sleep, exercise.
Right.
If you can get those 3 foundations down, then you're going to do well, because you're going to be motivated. You're going to have high energy, and you're going to, I just feel like those are the building blocks for being a healthy, living a successful life.
Right.
If you're financially successful, you can't enjoy it if you're crippled at 60 and can't breathe.
Yeah, it's very true. And sleep's a big part of that too. Sleep is a big part of that, which I want to talk about with you.
And I'm like a super fragile person with sleep. Oh my God.
Same.
I got wrecked because I started my AED and the shifts are 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. And I'm like, how the hell am I supposed to get 7 hours of sleep? I screwed it the first couple nights, and then I started having to get in bed at 8:45 to be at 9:15 so I could get my 7.5 hours. And I was like, this is miserable.
It is. But anyways, it really is.
I'm a huge proponent of that. I've pretty much always had some kind of workout in part of my life,
Yeah. You have always, since I've known you, you've always been an extremely fit human. You've always been doing, even when we were in high school, with the people that you surrounded yourself with, were always very in the mindset of working out, doing something to not be a piece of garbage.
Well, yeah, and I think one of those people you're referring to is Ian.
Of course, that's exactly what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
This kid in high school, it's so crazy to think back to it now, because now I'm in that mindset. Whereas, when we were in high school, I was a junior, sophomore, junior year. He was a year older than us, but, sophomore, junior year, I remember seeing Ian coming to school, and we would give him so much shit for the meals he would pack for himself. And I'll never forget this moment. There was a day where we were all hanging out together, obviously in the cafeteria at the lunch table, and Ian had packed he said he had packed a specific amount of grams of almonds. Okay, he was to that point where, let's say he packed 56 grams of almonds, right?
He was at the curve.
Yeah, so he weighed out these almonds every morning for him to eat as a quote snack. And I remember memeing him and joking with him and being like, "Wow, dude, you're eating those almonds? Those are the honey covered almonds." And I remember him actually getting "Oh my God, are they really?" I'm like, "Hang on, let me." I remember tasting them in front of me, "Yeah, dude, those are honey covered. You know how many carbs you're taking in? Just fucking with them." And he's like, "Oh my God!" I remember him zipping the bag up and putting it back in and be like, I can't eat that. I'm not gonna eat that." That was the mindset that he was in long before anything that's happening right now. And that was one of the main people that you surrounded yourself with. So you've always kind of been on this fit, healthier lifestyle. And I'm not gonna say that. I'm not going to say that you and I did not share a couple Whataburger experiences.
Oh my God. Dude, I was even bringing Ian up because one of the things he's been telling me, I've stayed in touch with him a long time, but one thing he's been kind of mentions to me recently is something like his little mantra. I don't know where he picked it up, but discipline equals freedom. So for me, I'm I don't go by that, but that's me, because I like working out and I like running and not eating at times, fasting, so that when I get to tonight and I want my chocolate milk and peanut butter covered snacks, I'm hammering them, and I have no guilt, what I mean? And so that
is a great way. That is a great way to think about things, without a doubt. To be able to discipline yourself so that you can get those treats, right? Those things that you really desire. Yeah.
I did a workout. God, this was so bad. That 6 to 6 shift is so stupid. It leaves literally zero time to freaking get a workout in. So I worked that for the past 4 days, and it was my first workout today. The gyms are still closed and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not going to the gym, but I have like dumbbells and just push-ups and lifting, some buys and tries, and I'm like, I'm feeling nice and jazzed up, man. Like I'm feeling good.
That's one of the craziest things too. Is I put a lot of things that I talk about into perspective for me, right? So like if if I can get out and I can do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 mile hikes every day. That's how I structure my workouts. I start like Monday with a 3, 4, Tuesday, all the way down the line. Now, granted, I did not get one in today because I was a little late. I overslept, but my body needed it. But I structure that to where I go out on a hike and then I do the basics with body calisthenics. So I've been doing a lot of squats, and push-ups, and just that alone, man, will change who you are. Will change so much. Like, and that is stuff that I never realized until recently, until I really started taking this body that I was given seriously. And again, this all trails back to, listen, like, I'm not some health guru. I'm not like the fittest guy, but I am actively trying to not be a piece of garbage, which I think is something that a lot of people can and should strive for.
Yeah. I mean, I always have the idea, because like, there's been stints, if it's like an injury or something, like, you don't work, or sometimes even like serious people that work out a lot, like, they'll work out very hard all the time, but then they'll give themselves like 3 months to just their body heal and recuperate. But during those 3, like, it's just such an obvious feeling to me that I haven't worked out.
Yeah.
And I always wonder, those, just people that never started that in their life, this might be biased, I just don't know. But like, I always wonder, is it just they don't know how much better they could be feeling, because like a lot of people don't just always eat trash. So I'm like, if you just like you're probably sleeping okay, you're probably eating okay. So it's just like, just throw in like 3, 30-minute workouts a week and start there and like see how you feel, because you're probably going to feel awesome, and then you're probably not going to want to go back.
Yeah.
Or you're going to want to go back to not working out,
Yeah, that is definitely a thing that I've noticed, even I tried to pace myself, because I've gotten these like workout mindsets in the past, and I feel like I've burnt myself out real quick, where, right off the rip, you go hard and you're like, oh man, you're feeling this. But by week 3 or 4, you're like, fuck man, like I'm so tired, I'm so sore, like whatever it may be. So, for me, it's a matter of pacing yourself and really, starting off at that 3-day a week. All right, 3-day a week while eating healthy, 6 to 7 days a week, right? Or, which I've just recently kind of got into is, the times that you do eat shitty should still be portioned out to the normal, like, quote, healthier like portioned out in a sense of like the calories that you're intaking should be the same as if you're eating like a healthier meal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so, starting off that way and then working into going a little bit more and a little bit heavier and a little bit deeper every single day has really, really helped me out. But, one of the things that I've taken really seriously, or definitely have tried to, has been my sleep. I ended up downloading.
I remember I hit you up. I was like, bro, I'm kind of getting worried about that sleep schedule.
Yeah, you did, and you were actually one of the first people to really kind of be like, hey man, like, what are you doing? Like, because it was one of those things where I was waking up at 1 a.m. and I was going live at 2 a.m. and streaming from 2 a.m. to 10, 11 a.m. p.m. in the afternoon, and then passing out and not really getting, not really being on that circadian rhythm. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And so obviously I had to change that lifestyle immediately, because I not only did I not like it, but I didn't feel myself. I didn't feel like I was myself. But I ended up downloading an audiobook. It's called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. It's
the guy that Rogan had on his podcast.
Yeah, it is.
Dude, that podcast is amazing.
It's incredible.
sleep in that podcast than I did all through medical school.
Which is insane, right? Because it's such, and as someone who spent so much time in school, to be able to hear that is crazy, because the importance the importance of your sleep is so it's so fundamental in your body recovering from day-to-day activity, and you know, I took it so serious that I this ring that I wear right here, it's called an Aura ring, and basically what it is it's a sleep tracking device, and on top of that it's also an activity tracking device as well. But this thing goes into all kinds of different metrics. So obviously it talks about your activity, but then it goes into your readiness for the day, and then obviously your sleep as well. So to like kind of touch on it real quick.
Are you sure it isn't a mood ring?
It's not a mood ring, okay? I promise it's not a mood ring. But you know, last night it tracks your total amount of sleep, your sleep efficiency, how much restfulness you got, your REM sleep, deep sleep, your latency.
Yeah, that's nice.
It talks about your resting heart rate while in sleep, your body temperature, obviously all the different cycles that you go into, and it's helped me. Now, granted, I'm not the best sleeper, but I'm so sensitive to sleep that if I don't get it, I know without question immediately. But you know, just having this ring and having it's such a big difference, because I go from having no information to having all the information that I could possibly want and need as to why I'm not getting sleep, helpful tips to help me get more sleep. You know, it reminds me of time, quote, before bedtime that allows me to, and it gives me tips on around that time of what I can do to go ahead and start to prep my body to get sleep. And it's amazing the difference I feel whenever I get good sleep. Like today, I feel incredible as opposed to yesterday. And this is not me just going off some app or some bullshit. Like I truly feel great, because you know, last night I got 8 hours and 10 minutes of sleep. I woke up this morning feeling great with dude, and it's so insane, such a minute part of your day in all reality, because we're talking about sleep, like everybody does it, but it is truly taking sleep into like valuing sleep more than I did in the past has really changed. Truly, from the bottom of my heart, truly changed who I am and what I do every day. Like the better sleep I get, the more motivated I feel to go work out and to go. I
mean, you can't have a good. I mean, it's again, it's a foundation, and you know those foundations rely on each other. You can't work out if you're exhausted, you know, from having shitty sleep. You can't work out if you ate like shit. I mean, well, you can, but like you're not gonna have a good workout,
right?
You know, and you're not gonna feel good. Like you're not gonna be like, yes, like this workout is mine. You know?
Like I nailed it. Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy the little things that you can do to try and improve your life that really make a difference. That really, really make a difference. And one of the things that I'm sure you heard on that podcast that not a lot of people, especially doctors, are talking about is not a lot of doctors are prescribing sleep or prescribing working out as opposed to just like, here, take this, you know. Whereas I feel like it is such a weird thing to say out loud, be like, yeah, you should just get more sleep, dude. Like, just close your eyes. I don't understand. Go to bed. Like that is such a tough thing to really talk about and to really say. But it's insane for the people who are running on that. You know the people who are like, oh man, I can run on 4 hours of sleep. I'm good to go. Like you'll sleep and you're dead type thing. Well, in reality, dude, you're just killing yourself quicker, right?
Yeah.
Like you're just making things harder on yourself. And it's insane. As somebody who has been a piece of garbage for a very long time, I've noticed that with better sleep comes a better quality of life, and there's nothing that can replace that, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I think I was trying to think. I think it was on that podcast he mentioned how, you know, because he was talking about how it's like pretty much like in all the studies they did at like, I think it was after 7 hours or like 6.5, they started seeing like drastic fall offs in all their measurements,
right,
for like, performance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what was interesting is how, you'll have those people that are like, oh no, like 4 hours, I'm good. And like, but how there actually is like a 5% of the population that has like a gene that is like actually able to do it.
And
That was pretty
it
interesting.
is such a small percentage though. And
It's like, it's probably not you.
yeah, it's definitely more than likely not you. And I know without question it is not me. Because
No.
I am, dude, if I get 6 hours, I am exhausted.
Oh, dude, it's terrible.
I'm
6
exhausted.
hours I'm zapped.
Dude, 8 hours, in anywhere between 8 and 10, I am, oh my God, I feel it. And I know that I'm feeling great. Like I said, today, like last night, I got 8 hours and 10 minutes of sleep. And that to me, like I woke up and like, oh yeah, like I am ready for the day. And to be honest with you, last night was because I've been so excited to have you on this podcast. Like last night, getting to bed was kind of a tougher deal because I was like, all right, what am I going to talk about with Connor? Like, what do I want to move into? And obviously, all of that, by the way, has been fucking thrown out the window. I haven't asked anything that I thought about last night. Yeah, we're just going off the cuff, which is what I like. But yeah, it's one of those things that really changes the mindset and can really affect your day-to-day operations. Is sleep, and it's such a simple thing to do.
Oh, my dad, if he ever listens to this, he's just gonna be like crying. Like he's like ever since I was a little kid, like I'd be like a little dick one day, and he'd be like, "Didn't get your sleep last night." I'm not shaking like after this sleep thing for such a long time. It's like crazy grown. I mean, I've told him this, but I was like, the older I get, the stuff I thought was your bullshit. It was like I was like, God, he was so right,
dude. And that's the thing about getting older, man, is really recognizing and really blocking out that shut up, that shut up vibe, and really listening to things, because again, the older you get, the more you realize how right your elders, the people you looked up to, were, and that is it's so crazy, man, because it happens all the time. All the time. One of the things that I definitely did want to talk about that sparked the interest was, I know you weren't in the ICU, you haven't been in really like the super critical condition people,
right.
But one of the things that I've been reading and been hearing about was in the ICU when you get put on the what?
The ventilator? Intubated?
The ventilator, right, where it's basically doing 90% of your body's work, breathing for you, taking care of everything. I have been hearing and reading that is detrimental to the body, because it's almost like giving up and there's a machine doing it for you. Is there
So like I remember hearing this, like this didn't make any sense, because like I mean this is like no offense to you, but like
of course not. No. This is not my thoughts, right?
Really to what you were saying, but like I remember hearing one person, it was like, oh, like it was like a blog. This is like real early on. It's like they're saying being intubated is linked to higher mortality, and they're kind of saying like, oh, if you're intubated, like it could increase your death. I'm like, no, you're gonna fucking die because you are you're intubated because you're about to die.
Right.
You know what I mean? Of course, it's gonna be linked to higher mortality because you're literally gonna die without it. So it's just like saying, yeah, I'm sure it's detrimental to your I'd assume it's not great for your body to have a tube down your throat and a machine's pumping air.
Of course not.
It's not good for your body.
Yeah.
But if you don't have that machine, you're dead.
Right.
So like that's such an interesting thing that some people bring up with these like questions of like, oh, are they doing the right thing? It's like, no, we can't. When they're in the ICU, they literally can't breathe. I can't tell them, hey, sleep 8 hours tonight.
Yeah.
No, because their lungs are just done.
They're not working. Right.
On. Yeah, they're in ARDS. So like what we were talking about there. So pretty much when acute respiratory distress syndrome, your body overactivates and it's like flooding the air sacs in your lungs that your blood is exchanging the oxygen and carbon dioxide with. Those are just disrupted. Like that surface that allows that nice smooth transition is gone. It's messed up. It's very hard to oxygenate and to ventilate. Ventilate means to give off the CO2 that if you don't do that properly, you're going to get altered and pass out and die.
Right.
I mean, and if you're not able to do those things, that leads you to needing to have intubation. And I mean, so it's just like, if, it's always a funny thing. It's like, well, no, that's why we always test every day, can this person, the question, if someone's on a ventilator every single day, that ICU team is saying, can they come off the ventilator?
Right.
Can we win them off? Can we get them off of this? Because the longer you're on that, the likelier you're going to die, and the likelier that you're going to have trouble when you come off of it.
Of
Chronic
course.
lung disease. So yeah, I mean, no, it's not good for you. I mean, and having that air pumped into you as well. I mean, that forcefully coming in when you're not letting it, naturally come in, and that's called barotrauma.
Okay.
It can cause impact. Just that pressure going into a very fragile tissue.
Yeah.
It can cause damage that way. So I mean, there's a lot of not good things that come out of being intubated, but you're intubated on a ventilator because you would die otherwise.
Right. And that makes a lot more sense now that you talk about it in that context, because truly a lot of the things that are going around that, and it's crazy how many people just immediately write it off and don't think about the other side of that, like you're talking about. That's like, oh well,
it's the side. It's like that is the thought process. It's
right.
Like crazy.
It is that is such the thought process of things, because immediately everybody hears the, oh well, if they go on the ventilator, they're just gonna die. Well, listen, motherfucker. If they weren't on that, they would just die immediately anyways. Like
they're gonna. I mean, people come off of ventilators all the time. Like that happens. I mean, but it's just like you have to. That's the next step you have to take if they're not gonna breathe for themselves.
Right.
You know what I mean? We put them on there because they're sitting there breathing. We think they're gonna do bad. We're intubating them because they can't breathe.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Hey man, we're not gonna let you die right here, right?
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. That's what I was kind of getting at. When we were talking about, how some of these stats you'll hear like, oh, it's a 5 or 40% chance. And you're like, what the hell? That doesn't make any sense. And really that comes from, the scientific. What's interesting is that there's never been a scientific process, the scientific method applied to a problem that has been under the microscope this much in human history. I'm guessing, with social media, like we've never had a pandemic with social media this high.
Yeah.
With everybody having a quick way to speak their mind. And I don't know, I don't know what it's going to come out to. I mean, I don't know what other countries are doing. I mean, they're doing well right now. So maybe it's not as much of a problem, but like with the US, like even beforehand, you had this anti-vaxxer thing, and then you have this scientific method that's under the under the microscope here, and is trying to be picked apart by non-experts, and it's only going to lead to confusion for people that don't understand the process. And this is the first time people have ever been interested in it, and they don't actually know. And you just we're a lot of it, we're in the dark too. I mean, this is just starting, and for the first month, when you have patients kind of coming in willy-nilly, like you're just simply not able to get good data on the first 100 patients,
Of course.
And it's very interesting. And I was even talking to one of my attendings too, and I was saying, we're starting to get a good idea of how many people are like asymptomatic carriers.
Right.
And I'm like, I wonder what this would be like for the flu. I wonder what this would be like for any other viral illness. Like how many people are just carrying around? Because like I was thinking about, like, when have we ever just rampantly like tested people for something regardless? Sometimes they might not even been having symptoms and they're getting tested.
Yeah.
Like how, it's really interesting. Like we're finding things, like there's a lot we don't know about it, but it's also, I think we're going to find out a lot about this virus that we don't know of other viruses.
I think you're right.
Yeah, it's interesting. But the scientific process is it's pretty complicated. It takes a long time. It takes very strict studies for people to get results that they trust. I mean, you have so many variables and biases that you have to control for. And, and right now we're in this kind of, everybody, when they're kind of doing these tests, when they have all these patients, all this data, they're kind of under like a sink and ship mentality, and everybody's like, go, go, go.
Yeah.
They're trying to keep the patients safe. They're not really, you're not really truly focused on like the research aspects. So a lot of that is going to start trickling in, now that we're kind of out of that, time period of people stressing more of like how many people are going to die versus,
And one of the things that I've really been thinking on, and really
the spicy stuff.
Ooh, let's go, baby! Crack that Jameson open. One of the things that a lot of that you just touched on is that we are in this social media era, and there's never been a pandemic in a time like this. And to me, starting out early on with a lot of the information that was coming out, was the scariest part was not knowing what was confirmed and true, as opposed to just like, oh, I heard this, here it is, Twitter, I'm tweeting it.
Yeah.
That is one of the most terrifying things about the era that we live in right now. Is terrifying and greatest things about the era that we live in right now is the accessibility of information and how quickly it's all disseminated throughout everybody. I mean, everybody. You can go from hearing you. I mean, it ranges in such a broad spectrum of, oh, this is bullshit. I can't believe you're even going to wear a mask. And what are you doing? Like, how are you not wearing? And everything in between. Yeah. And I remember when this all started out, I remember specifically talking about, I don't know what to believe. It got to a point where I almost like deleted a lot of social media just because I didn't want to see it. I didn't want to know any. I just want, dude. And I feel like a lot of people are in the same boat as I just want the facts, man. Just tell me what I need to do. Tell me, tell me what needs to happen and what is actually happening out there in the world right now. Because there was this whole, and I'm sure it's still without question a thing that's happening is a lot of hospitals, and this is something that I've just heard. It's not anything that I believe, but I mean there is cause for me to believe it. Is that if you were to get in a car accident and you were to die, but you had COVID symptoms, you got marked down as you died as COVID, right? As somebody that died as COVID, as opposed to the you were in a car accident and you got sent there. And that was not to get too far off topic, but that was one of the things that I was hearing consistently, and I was hearing different things that had to do with the actual virus itself, the way it's mutating, the way it's being transmitted between human to human, like all this crazy shit, man, like all this stuff that is so hard to talk about and so hard to articulate was all floating around at the touch of our fingertips, like it's so insane. It's so hard to keep up with. Like, dude, just tell me the fucking facts, bro. God.
Yeah. I mean that's the nice thing about the science is that luckily for us, we don't really have to have an opinion on what's not in the literature.
Right.
Medicine is evidence based through and through. I mean, that's the best medicine. Is stuff you have evidence on that is not biased, that is controlled. And, that's what I'm telling, that's the stuff that I came prepared with today is the only thing that I had stuff where I said, yep. And I can point to a good study for that. This is the study. But otherwise, I mean, it'd be like my opinion. Luckily that stuff doesn't really affect us and I don't really have to have an opinion on it, but I don't really know, like epidemiology wise and people, capturing data and how much are they capturing? Are they actually overestimating? I've heard they're underestimating. Like, I'm in the same boat as you. I'm just like, I could give two shits, but because they don't stop coming in the fucking hospital. And my freaking summer's been ruined. I'm pissed,
Yeah, man. I was trying to travel, dude. What the hell are we talking about?
Yeah, like, golly.
Yeah.
So it's I mean, it's exhausting. I mean, kind of like doubling back to that, when it started kicking off in Italy, laid the foundation for the freaking how political that hydroxychloroquine became was that there was a study in France, and it was like open label, I don't even think it was randomized. It was, like 36 patients. Like I told you, a hydroxy one with 3,000. And there was like 36 and they're like, oh, there was like a 25% decrease in mortality. And then like, boom, wildfire, we got a cure. And then that, and it just like social media just spread,
big time.
It was like one of the first little studies to come out about COVID in general. So it was like one of the first studies, one of the first positive studies, and people just latched onto that for good news. And even though it was a trash study.
Right.
And then what was the other one? Well, yeah, I mean, that was a bad one. And then, the NSAIDs, ibuprofen, stuff like that. When it first started coming out, they were saying, oh, don't take ibuprofen. There's anecdotal evidence that there's kids that are coming in that were taking it the day before, so let's not recommend it. So,
Wait,
all
what?
we had, I mean, this was like really early, like it wasn't in the United States yet,
Okay.
but like that was spreading like, oh, everybody needs to stop taking NSAIDs because, someone had a story about observationally seeing a couple patients that were severe and took ibuprofen beforehand. Like that is garbage.
Right.
Garbage. But that's just all we had, and it spread like wildfire because we didn't know what we were dealing with. And that's already been revoked. There's no problem with that. And you're not, you can give people NSAIDs with it, and it's just
I would
not an
hope
issue.
so.
Yeah, but I mean, but like that's like an example of how quickly that stuff spreads. It's
all through social media. Just the first thing people hear, here it is. Take it.
Yeah.
Take it. Run with it. See what happens. I need more retweets. I need more likes. I need more engagement on every tweet.
Twitter, the most literature-oriented website I can think of.
Yeah, I'm sure you're a big fan.
I don't even have one.
I know that because I was thinking about this beforehand. I was like, all right, well, before I get him on the podcast, all right, where am I going to be able to shout him out at and post about him and all this kind of shit? Dude, it's wild. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna have to tag your wife and everything and be like, yeah, check out, like, because you are so just not on the spectrum of social media.
I do have an Instagram. I don't even have like a face. So it's just like,
I know.
I have my buddies. I had a group of med school buddies who had we had a group chat, and then they had like an Instagram group, and they're like, Sleeth, you're missing all this funny stuff. And it was like that. I got harassed for it for like 3 years, and in fourth year had some free time, and they're like, you have no excuse. And I was like, fine, I'll create an Instagram.
I'll make an Instagram.
It's come together.
Yeah, man. It's a wild era that we're in right now, no doubt about it. One question that I had personally for you, I mean, this is all personal, this is a podcast, but what are you doing to take care of yourself day to day while you're in contact with so many potential and without question COVID patients? Like, what are you doing to try and keep yourself safe?
Well, I guess like my situation is a little less. So it's like a much more stringent scenario versus somebody who's trying to figure out, do I go to the grocery store? Is it prevalent in my area? I mean, for me, it's like pretty obvious. Like you show up, I have a mask on 24/7. When I go into the COVID rooms, it's a whole different elevated personal protection equipment.
Yeah.
And then when you come out, you just put a different kind of mask on. And I mean, you have hand sanitizer everywhere. So it's like, you're just doing everything you can in the hospital. And now in the ED, I don't have a respirator, but I have an N95 that I'm wearing the whole shift, which sucks. But I mean, it keeps you safe, keeps other people safe from me. I don't know. So yeah, I mean, really for that, it's just, I pretty much got my N95 mask on all the time. I just keep, I don't know, no one gets in my car, but I just keep leave my jacket, my stethoscope, any other little nitbits I need for work in the car, come in. Yeah. I mean, we don't ever wear shoes in the house in general. So, I mean, that didn't change much, but I'm just like stripping butt ass naked right in the doorway, throwing in the wash. And then I just go straight to the shower. I mean, that's pretty much all I can do. And really, I haven't had any time to do anything outside the house. So I haven't had to worry about that.
I know that. But that the reason why I asked that is because your household is full of, I mean, it's you and Kat also has, she's also in the medical field as well. What does she do in specific?
Sure. So she is a pediatric ICU nurse.
And is she seeing a lot of?
So they don't. So this is a weird, funny. I mean, it's just a funny time that you were doing the podcast. So the whole time she hasn't had any COVID kids that came in with problems for COVID. I think there was maybe like one or two kids that they swabbed incidentally, and they're like, oh, they're here for something else, but they have COVID. So they have. I mean, that's another little topic. I mean, not many kids are getting COVID. Apparently they're not really able to transmit COVID as much as adults.
And why is that?
Oh, I mean, no one has any idea. I have no idea. I'm definitely not afraid.
You know what's crazy? That was so much rather the fuck I have no idea than, oh, well, I think it's because of this. Like, I would so much rather, oh, fuck, I have no idea.
I mean, they have like a little, if we wanted to, we could, but they have like their own little, their like severity, like their complication. There's not many that get severe symptoms. More kids get like flu and bad flu complications than they are getting COVID and COVID complications. But it is a pretty interesting little like syndrome that some of them are getting when it is severe. Mm-hmm. But anyways, Catherine, they haven't had any of that at their work. But for the first time yesterday, she had a baby that was incidentally, like, was there for something else, but had COVID. So that was her first thing. So she had that. But, they're always geared up. She's in the same thing I am, the N95, and, we have good equipment. And, I mean, it's all you can do. And, like I said, my sister was on the ICU COVID adult unit, shit and hitting the fan in Seattle.
Seattle was wild for a minute.
She had the proper PPE and everything, and she didn't get it from there. So, I mean, like, when you have that all in line, I mean, you shouldn't be able to, it's just a product of, hey, this stuff actually works.
Yeah. Hey, man, could you imagine the CDC being like, hey, you should wear this because it works, and everyone being like, oh no, this is bullshit. They're taking away our rights. Like, Jesus Christ. And the reason why I asked that was because, Jessica, my girlfriend, she's in the dental field.
And up in the face.
Yeah, and she's obviously in probably the easiest way to contract COVID via the mouth. And she is she wears a regular surgical mask, I believe is what it's called, and then over top of that is an N95, and then over that is the face shield, and she's required to wear that day in and day out. If she's to shed the mask or shed anything, at bare minimum she has to keep the N95 on. And
is it probably most likely the N95 on and then the surgical mask over that?
I think so. She sent me a picture. I don't know for certain. But that sounds like it probably makes a little bit more sense. Is that how mainly people are doing it? N95, and then the mask over top of that?
Yeah, so most people are doing the mask on top of that isn't for really increased safety. It's so that you can keep reusing that N95 mask and it doesn't get dirty from people popping on that mask.
Okay.
But at the same time, I think recently I wasn't wearing much because I had the respirator on.
Yeah.
And then just recently switched to the N95. But I think now they're saying, I mean, I can look it up, but I think in our hospital, at least, they're actually saying don't wear that, because I think, for one, we're having proper, everybody's well stocked,
Yeah.
So you're able to get new N95s easily if you need them. But they're saying don't put the surgical mask over it because it's capturing moisture in between there and can kind of make it dirty. So, I mean, because the thing is, what doesn't make sense is that for her, and we have these in the hospital as well. Like I had, when I was in COVID rooms, I had goggles on.
She has to wear those too with the face shield over too.
Holy shit!
Yeah, it's crazy.
So, but the thing is though, if the face shield comes right here, the surgical, that's playing the same role as the surgical mask over the N95. You know what I mean? Like what's the surgical mask stopping if the face shield
right? True.
So, I mean, at least they got her well equipped.
Yeah, true. Yeah, they're not. And the same thing with her doctor. Her doctor is wearing like a full. She says it's like he's on Mars. Like he has like a hose going to the back that's circulating in fresh air. Like they take it for real around here, which is I would rather be overprotected than not protected enough, right?
Sure.
But one of the things that I, without question, wanted to talk with you about and get kind of an opinion for you, like we talked about how I'm going to be traveling. What precautions should I take while traveling, and not just me, but everybody? What should I take for traveling and hitting different spots and being in different planes? What can I do to be safer on these plane flights?
I mean, one, I would see if she can swag some N95s. That would be nice. Like if she can scoop a couple N95s for y'all, that'd be ideal.
Right.
Because that would protect you. I mean, that would be great protection because the surgical masks aren't helping you get sick from others, it's helping you not getting other people sick.
Okay.
The N95 will lock it down where you won't be the one getting sick.
Okay.
You know what I mean? That's the ideal with those. Otherwise, certainly a mask. Yeah, definitely need to wear a mask. Just have hand sanitizer on you, especially if you're flying around. God, even I probably give the same precautions, even if it wasn't COVID. The hospital. People airports are disgusting.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, they really are.
So it's the same thing. You want to be washing your hands well. You don't necessarily have to be washing your hands with hands and soap and water unless you after go to the bathroom or your hands are visibly dirty. Otherwise, if your hands are clean looking, hand sanitizer is fine. On the plane, you can bring sanitizer wipes.
Yeah.
Again, this is all stuff. Actually, Catherine's like a pretty big kind of germ freak.
Germaphobe kind of.
Yeah, she's a little bit of a germaphobe, and she understood all that before this started. And
of course,
she would do when we got onto a plane, wiping down the seat buckles, wiping down the armrest, wiping down the tray table. A lot of these, I'm thinking a lot of these planes are doing that already. They're trying to keep people separated already, so that's good. But I would do it again.
Yeah, they definitely. Have you flown since all of this has happened?
So we did. Let me think. When was that? So we flew up we went to Charlottesville because all of our stuff got canceled. I wasn't doing anything. We were off for Catherine had off for work for 3 weeks because we were going to Europe.
Mm-hmm.
But we were. Yeah. And anyway, she didn't get to go to Charlottesville with me for my interview. So,
right.
And I wouldn't have time this year to go up there. So we're like, let's go, take a trip. And we did that. And man, it was, relatively early. It's not really, I don't like saying I travel, but I traveled at a good time. And the fact that there was like 6 people on my flight every time, it was pretty early in it all, probably like maybe March. It was kind of like when it didn't really hit the U.S. hard yet, but we knew it was kind of out and a lot of people weren't being out.
Yeah.
So we did that, and it was probably the safest. It was way safer than the grocery store, but that's because there was no one there.
I 100% agree with that.
We, all good, but my grandpa passed like 2 months after that, and we had to fly for that, and that was stressful because it was like 2 months later, and that airport was packed, and I was like, so stressed.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. And we came out fine. We did the proper precautions, the mask. We tried to do everything we could, but it was just something I felt like it was worth traveling for. And that's a whole different topic. That just super shitty situation for some people.
Yeah.
Not being able to do that. So I have done it. Mask it up. Bring hand sanitizer. Bring your sanitizer wipes. And that's really, the best thing you can do. And then, do not take, keep your hands off your face. I think even right now, the Academy of Ophthalmologists. So it's kind of like the big medical doctor group of ophthalmologists. They're actually recommending people not wear contacts because you're more likely to touch your face.
Holy.
Pretty crazy. Yeah.
God, that's so insane, man. I know that whenever we just recently flew in June, they, like you said, a lot of the airlines are already providing some of these things that you're talking about, with the hand sanitizer right when you hit the plane, and then whenever you're taking your seat, they give you the wipe down to give you the option to wipe everything down. And I definitely take all of that serious. And whenever they hand out, did you happen to get like in-flight food or snacks or anything like that?
No, I didn't have to do that. No,
okay, so the in-flight snacks they handed out, I took a picture of it, was these sealed plastic bags that came with a little small Dasani bottle of water, a couple of little like a granola bar, and then like some cookies in there, and then along with that came more hand sanitizer and more wipe down things in case you were needing it. And I had no problem with that, but the issue was for me, and they are, like I said, taking a lot of precautions, was with with separating people as far as rows go. So I don't know how you flew, but whenever I flew, it was like 3 seats. The next row in front of me was empty, and then the next row in front of me was 3 seats of people. And I just like kept going all the way throughout the plane like that. So I felt safe, but even with the baggies that they brought out, I didn't feel good about taking my mask off to eat, to put anything in my mouth. Like I didn't really like that. Now granted, I still did it because I'm that guy, but I did not feel good about the way that was. I did not feel good about shedding any equipment that I was wearing on the plane. Just because of being with that recirculated air and all that shit. But you know, this is something that's been on my mind because we are traveling in November, and I know that a lot of the stuff that I'm hearing is, you know, this virus dies in UV light, so like sun and warmer weather, whereas opposed to like we're traveling in November to a lot of cold places, so. Denver, Wyoming, Portland, Washington, Alaska. These are all cold areas. And so that was the reason why I asked you these questions, is because I am so terrified of traveling to these areas where things might be a little bit, where the virus might be a little bit more prevalent. And so I wanted to know personally what I should be doing. Should I mix in some gloves?
So okay, so well, I didn't. I was like, oh, he's probably not going to bring them up, so I wasn't going to touch on it. But it's pretty funny because like that was a big thing even from the start of this. Is that when I was going through medical school, like 3rd year, you start getting into the hospital, right?
Right.
That's when you also do your surgery rotations. Very much like. It is a process. It is a skill of properly having all the equipment, the gloves, so that you are sterile. You know, that's why you see like the shows where the doctors are like this. You know?
Yeah.
But handling that equipment and not doing certain things and doing things in the right order is literally something that every single med student has gotten chewed out because they didn't do it correctly and had to do it all over again. And it's so funny getting to, it's humorous, but it's like, it sucks getting to observe people kind of doing a half-assed job of it, trying their best, but uneducatedly doing so and not doing, and defeating the purpose almost every time. So gloves, don't wear gloves, because gloves give you a kind of unconscious confirmation that your hands are safe. So you'll be, you might touch things like you think, you're like now safe, but like it's on your hand. So it's like we would see people in the grocery store with gloves, but then you would see them in their fucking car driving here and scratching their head. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh my gosh! I think she cracks me up so funny when she said, Catherine told me one time she was at a stoplight and somebody was like on the phone with the gloves on, and she was like mimicking like take the gloves off, and the guy was like, and they like rolled down the window. He's like, you can never be too careful. And she's like, that's not the point.
Jesus. Yeah, you've just been wearing gloves, touching everything, and then coming back and be like, all right, cool, let me touch everything else in my car.
Yeah. I've seen people with the gloves and then ladies like messing with their hair. It's so
God.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't wear gloves because I think it just, you want to be able to be, you want that hypervigilance with your hands.
It gives you a false sense of security is what it is.
Exactly. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah. So I would not wear gloves. But that's even going back to the mask. How do they handle the mask properly? If a lot of people, you don't want to like untie and keep retying it. So some people, pinch here, bring it down, take a sip. When you bring that back up, bring it back up, and then you got to wash because what if that was where a droplet fell, And then now you got it on this hand. I mean, it's almost near impossible to do it perfectly. I mean, it's virus. I mean, good God.
Germs are all around us, man. To
do your best. If you're really trying to cut every single corner, I mean, think where is the infected area of my body? Like if I touch my forehead, it could be there, let's wash my hands, if I'm touching a backpack that was on the ground, if I'm getting my luggage out, who handled that? All right, wash that. You just want to wash the frequently touched areas that are around you. And, and then in the end of the day, it's doing the best you can,
Right. What's crazy to think about is as you're talking about that, like, especially when traveling and when flying, everything gets fucking touched, man. And so
dude, it's the worst.
my mind immediately goes to, like, you're like, oh, well, I need to, like, you should be washing, like, the most frequently touched things. And my mind immediately goes to, like, the typical American or probably human mind is like, fuck, man, I gotta wash, I gotta wipe down my entire suitcase. I can't put my backpack on the ground. Like, even storing your backpack in the overhead compartment, you're like, oh my God, what a nightmare. But, like, immediately after that, like, so that's the first thought. And then right after that is like, okay, do you want to fucking die? Or do you want to take 10 minutes to wipe everything down? So,
dude, I feel that. I remember, we had my family, when my grandpa passed, he was in there in Louisiana. So it's an awesome direct flight. So actually that flight actually wasn't that bad, but we did a direct flight to New Orleans. On the way back, I remember, it was awesome. There's not a single soul, like, in line. I have no idea how it is now, but
yeah,
not a single soul. And I had that, like, TSA pre-check for all my traveling previously.
Nice. Yeah.
And but I still wanted to use it because it means I don't have to take my shoes off. It means I don't have to bring my laptop out. So I was just like, oh, hey, like, I'm TSA pre-check, but they don't have a separate line for it,
Yeah.
They're like, oh, okay. So I go through, and then, a guy's like, is this your backpack? I'm like, oh, fuck. No. Like, we're not doing this. And he was like, and he's like, oh, yeah, you didn't take your backpack out. And he just, like, grabbed, with his gloves, like, probably touching everybody's stuff, grabs my backpack, throws it on his back. And I'm like, I'm TSA pre-check. He's like, oh. And I'm like, dude, I was like, you do not have to go through my stuff. Like, don't touch all my stuff. And then, like, he went and, like, talks to somebody and then gives it back. And I'm like, oh. So I'm, like, sitting there with a wipe, just, like, wiping it all down.
But that's what you have to do right now. And that was, I was having a conversation today about this with Cody, my buddy Cody. He and I are him and I are part of this trip, and he was like, look, man, like, are you sure that we should be traveling? Like, how do you feel about this? Like, kind of where's my head at? Essentially, is what he was asking me. And, for me, I feel as though if I take the proper precautions, I'm gonna feel better about things. So, wearing the N95 mask, taking, making sure I'm constantly washing my hands, not touching my face, whatever it may be, as I just touched my face. I feel a lot better about it. And, the places that we're traveling to are not, we're not spending a lot of time in a crowded area. I would say majority of the most crowded spaces we're going to be spending time in is going to be the plane flights. Because, when we get up to Alaska, it's just going to be me and him. We've got our own place. We're going to be, and it's pretty secluded, off the beaten path. But, it's mainly going to be hiking, spending time outdoors with just the crew that we're with. But, even that got me thinking, like, oh shit, like, what should I be doing to better prepare myself for this trip? Or like, to make, because the last thing I want is to obviously get sick. And taking these precautions and really thinking about it beforehand, it's a lot of prep work, man. It's just the way things are with the world we're in right now. But I think it's something that is super necessary, and something that should be at the top of the list is, all right, what do I need other than, like, all right, I've got to pack this, this, and this. What do I need to do to make sure that I'm safe while traveling with all these people?
Sure. Yeah, I think you're taking, what precautions you can. I think I actually saw this morning. I get, like, a little, like, email with the, latest medicine news, and I think the CDC, like, may have lifted, like, its, like, blanket, blanket, like, travel ban kind of deal. I think they may have lifted that, which I found interesting. It's just, it gets kind of hard because, like, I just don't know what's going on.
I know.
Out in Florida right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just like, that wasn't on my, like, bucket list of things to, like, try to figure out. I know, you hear Texas, California, Arizona, I think, but it's just like, outside of that, I was like, I really don't know how the other states are doing.
Yeah.
But it's just like, I don't know if the news got bored with it, but it's just like, I don't know. You don't really see it covered that much either.
I know.
So we'll see. I don't know. But it's, I'm, everybody's in the same boat. It sucks, and everybody just kind of has to assess their own risk and take the proper precautions they can if they do take a risk. And I think that's all we can ask for right now. I mean, it's just like, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying beforehand. It's just like, if we didn't do it right the first time and really capitalize on trying to get this thing out of the United States in general, like, I just don't think we're ever going to get to that point where we're going to eradicate it without a virus or without a vaccine. So, I mean, at this point now, it's just like living within, proper precautions that are, appropriate for you.
Yeah. God. What a crazy fucking world we live in right now, man.
Yeah.
God.
Everybody's tired of it. I'm tired, man.
Of course. Everybody's tired of it. And what's one of the craziest things to think about is for someone like me who's in a job that I have where I'm full-time streaming constantly, if my ass isn't in this seat, I'm not doing my job, right? If I'm not live, I'm not doing my job. So generally speaking, I'm not doing a whole bunch of traveling. I'm not doing a whole bunch of, moving around, going out, that kind of thing. I'm mainly like grocery store, real necessity things back home, gaming, cooking from home, whatever it may be. But, the second that they were like, hey, you can't travel anymore, or you shouldn't be doing anything like this anymore, I was like, fuck, man, I want to travel so bad. Like, now it's time. Now is the time when I want to start going places and doing things and making shit happen. And now I can't do it. And it really just, it really kind of puts a damper on things. But
then you're the one uplifting everybody because everybody's stuck at home. Not able to
and I'm gaming, yelling at people being an idiot while everybody else is hanging out too.
Yeah, I texted you. I was like, dude, this is like your time to shine. Yeah. Everybody's stuck at home.
Yeah. And I definitely, that was when I was trying to take as much advantage of the situation as I could by streaming as often as I could. And everybody got on that real fucked up sleep schedule there. I know you didn't, but everybody else that wasn't working, that was working everyday jobs and dealing with the typical 9 to 5, not your quote 9 to 5, was all on this weird fucked up sleep schedule that was just like, all right, well, I'm just gonna drink. Like, it was that portion of the pandemic was like, all right, I'm just gonna drink and do whatever I want to. Yeah. So I definitely got on that too, for sure. But yeah, man,
dude, it's been almost over 2 hours and we haven't even talked about gaming.
No, we haven't, which is crazy. Well, it's not crazy, but I again, it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning. Is I never thought I'd ever be sitting here talking with you about any of this to begin with, but also gaming. Like, the fact that you're like, hey man, we haven't talked about gaming. Like, what's going on? Like, it's fucking wild.
Well, I mean, dude, I was like, that's like so funny is that I would have thought the same thing, but back in high school, I would have thought, I'm not ever going to get in that position because James isn't going to be gaming.
Right? Yeah. It's so crazy, man. It's so crazy.
Flip. Oh yeah, like I'm super pumped. I got like recently, just we've been going on, so like when before residency happened, all your buddies are kind of everybody's home.
Everybody's home.
The people I've gamed with, my kind of like little crew of 2 or 3, we just were crushing just multiplayer games, just getting it in. And then once this restarted, one of those guys, he's in a residency as well. So, we've kind of split off and we're all kind of simultaneously doing single player games, working through our backlogs. And like I started, I'm going to plan on beating Halo. So I didn't really play Halo back in the day. Me either. And it's just resurfacing and popping off. Well, Call of Duty, we did Call of Duty 4 and the first Modern Warfare, then we did Modern Warfare 2. And, I was just like, I was good at those games. So I was like, I don't want to try Halo.
Yeah.
So I just didn't do it. And I think like a year and a half ago, I played the trilogy and I was like, that was sick. And the Master Chief Collection. And, and then I about halfway through Halo 4, planned on beating that. And then like Halo 5, me and buddy Jeremy, we have like his cat's working, his girlfriend's working. So we're playing on like co-op and that and like beating that all on Sunday.
Yeah.
So it's dude, it's good. I mean, hell, I was so pumped because like, when I started, you weren't playing started watching you weren't playing Overwatch.
Yeah.
And it was like 2 to 3 months ago that like I saw you playing. I was like, whoa. And then I was like, and then you're playing Reinhardt, who's like my like first my second main. And I was like, holy shit. And then like I'm like picking up tips from you. I started learning how like when you'd swing and then you would like fully turn around to run and you'd pick up speed. And I was like doing that stuff. I was like, this is so weird.
Yeah.
I was like, this is so weird.
It's so wild to see, first of all, to hear that, but also, the progression of Overwatch and thinking about how much time I spent playing games like that.
Oh my gosh,
Whenever I first started streaming, Overwatch and PUBG were like my two main games, but Overwatch without question was what I played the most. I was playing 18 hours a day, streaming 18 plus hours a day, only Reinhardt, bro.
That's
Only
crazy.
Reinhardt for
That's
months and months on end, and I got really good. It was what I did. It was what I really enjoyed, and it's crazy to see the progression of that and working hard and working hard, Jesus. But I mean, it's what I was doing. I was working hard to get good at whatever I could. And then taking such a long hiatus, and then whenever you first started coming in was probably the first time that I had been really getting back into it and really kind of fucking around with it and playing it a lot more. But it goes along with that saying of it's like riding a bike. Like you never forget it, right? Like you never forget it. And so being able to jump back on and actually play well was a lot of fun, because I took so much pride in playing at the highest possible rank that I could. I was Grandmaster for a little bit, which is right underneath top 500 in the world. So I played that. I played at that level for a hot minute. And granted, don't get me wrong, I fucked off a lot of different times and tanked my SR by just drinking and being an idiot. But that game holds such a place in my heart, because I spent so much time and I dedicated so much of my streaming career to that game that whenever you talk about, I was watching you and picked up like some random tips, like that shit hits home so hard, where I'm like, damn, man, like that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted was someone. I never wanted the money. I never wanted the glory of being this person, but someone to come to me and be like, hey, I watched you play this game and I picked up some tips and it really works for me. So that's so fucking rad. Oh my God, it's so good to hear, especially from someone like you who I would have never expected to ever hear that from. Like that's such a rad thing to hear, man.
Dude, Overwatch is like that is such an unreal game. I remember when I was in undergrad, I was watching Jeremy play, and he's like, the guy's a freak. He's like one of the ones that like he'll pick up that new character, and then he's
just
like,
be the best. Yeah.
He's like, I haven't really played with D.Va, and then we're rolling with D.Va, and he's just like dropping 40s, like each game.
Yeah.
The guy's a freak, and so he's the one that like he really wanted, because he played in undergrad like an ungodly amount of time. We're in vet school, and then he was, and I remember he's like, oh dude, he's like, I just really want you to play this. Like, I love this game. He just wanted me to feel that.
Yeah.
And I remember getting on the sticks, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, there's so much going on. Like,
dude, there's always so much happening.
I was so overwhelmed that I was just like, nah, this is game's stupid. And then once I remember, like, my first main was Moira, so that helped, because it kind of let me like take a step back and just kind of start understanding characters. And dude, and it's also a game, I know you're want to kind of talk about like the role in like my a busy career, like what does video games play for me, but like that's the game where I have to be careful, because I do not get rest from that game. It's not a game where I'm like, oh, like I'm exhausted, I just want to sit down and play some video games, because I know coming off of Overwatch, I could be going to bed furious and pissed.
You're so right, man. You're absolutely so right. Like, no doubt about it.
It is the most like complex game and most beautifully balanced game, except for Junkrat. That is, I don't know why that character's in there.
Right.
Side note. Yeah. But it's such a well-balanced game and so complicated. There's so many things that you can be thinking of. Like, if you're not thinking, you could be thinking of something,
Exactly.
It's incredible. And I mean, that is the kind of gameplay, like if you're playing that at 40 years old and 60 years old, and your mind is able to keep up doing that stuff, like, dude, that is nice. Like, that's solid.
Right.
Keeping
your brain active and really keeping things going with like critically thinking about situations and stimulating the brain itself. Of course, it's and I think there are just touching on that. I think there's a lot of I guess I don't want to say facts, or I would say more likely like statements out there that say, video games corrupt the youth, right? Like, oh, you're like damaging your kid or whatever. But in reality, in my mind, as somebody who's spent so much time in this area, dude, I feel like you're almost improving it depending on which game you're playing. I feel like you're almost improving the critical thinking and the sharpness, like the real quick, because in-game decision making has to be done on the spot, on the drop of a needle. It's got to be done right then and there, and I think that translates outside of video games to everyday life. Whether it be, the avoidance of a car crash, anything like that, any real life situation where you need to be quickly thinking about the next step or the next thing that needs to happen. I feel like that helps and that translates throughout everyday life.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, there's no research that shows that video games corrupt kids. Like, that doesn't make any damn sense.
Right.
But that, I think, concern just comes through like what we were talking about beforehand, the same thread of moderation.
Right.
I mean, if you're sitting on the couch for 12 hours, he's probably going to be fat.
Yeah.
And it's the way it is. And especially it's like, what video games are they playing? Are they in a community where they're socializing?
Yeah, that's a big thing too.
Oh yeah, me and my buddies that I play online with. I mean, we talk all the time. Like, we feel so bad for people that don't have video games and can have this connection. Because I was like, if I didn't have that, like, I would not be talking to them nearly as much as I do.
Of course, and that's
awesome.
just that also plays into our lifestyle, right? Like, the older we get, the further you kind of grow away from people.
Yeah.
As far as distance wise goes, and I feel that video games bring that back to, like, whether they were just hanging out at your house again type of deal. And
sure.
And that truly is such an incredible thing that video games bring to the table, man. I absolutely love it. It's
hilarious too, because you had that common thread of like early 2000s, like, violence and video games. I'm like, and I mean, like, don't get me wrong, like, I don't totally blame them, because that's like when Grand Theft Auto came out. Like, I'd be a little scared.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But that said, like, that was kind of their thing. Video games are all bad. But then there's actually been a lot of health professionals coming out saying that video games is a good thing to do during this time, because what we're going to have a lot of unfortunate data come out. I guarantee that's already kind of trickling out, that like mental health has taken a drastic toll.
It is, dude. It is
suicides and really terrible stuff that we don't really know the kind of the branches, that is not in the scope right now of like how COVID's also impacting people just by disrupting society.
Yeah.
So, I mean, right now, now you're in a position where you have people saying, oh, like, maybe we should be reaching for video games.
Yeah.
So that we can have some, you're engaged, you're socializing. I mean, like, right now, I mean, that's, the best thing, escapism. I mean, like, that's a huge
without a doubt. Yeah. And just recently I had on this podcast, his name's Josh. He goes by Chef Josh, and he's actually the assistant manager of Complexity Gaming, which is a big esports organization out of Frisco, Texas. They're backed by the Cowboys. Jerry Jones is a major investor.
Oh, nice.
The Goff family, GameStop, they're a big name org. And I had the opportunity to have him on the podcast, and he talked a lot about his time starting out. And at 17, he's referred to as Chef Josh because at 17 years old, he was in a lot of the AP classes, similar to what you were in, obviously, and smart guy over here. But he was in all of the AP classes. He graduated, one of the top of his class, and when he did graduate at 17 years old, he went a totally different route. He was planning on going into engineering, and he went a totally different route and took a job as a professional chef for Complexity Gaming for their Dota team. So from Maryland, he moved down
Like an
to
actual chef.
an actual chef,
Okay.
and with no background experience, nothing in it whatsoever. It was just he had, his mom was a nutritionist, and
Yeah.
and super well versed in the everyday diet, or like calorie consumption. So they always ate very healthy, and exercise was always a part of their lifestyle. But so he was probably the least qualified, but ended up getting this job. And you just touched on, well, if you're playing video games 12 hours a day and you're not being active, you're probably going to be obese, and you're probably your health is going to be at a lot more of a risk. And thank you. And sorry, I needed some ice for this. This is getting a little warm. And so and so just hearing his story and how things change, with video games and the way that things are going right now. You talk about escapism, and you talk about how much video games probably help people, but then also that topic of conversation is, well, everybody that plays video games is just fat sitting around all day. Well, he brought into perspective, people who scrim and play video games, and scrimming, if I'm sure scrimmaging is, the act of these guys playing at the highest level for 10, 12 hours a day, right? But coming along with that, he implemented eating healthy and still working and still having a routine of going to the gym and being active. So you can do these things that, a lot of people look at as, oh my God, like, you're just going to be fucking fat or whatever sitting around playing video games. But, if you eat well and you still mix in exercise and still do the thing that you want to do, dude, it overall adds to the better lifestyle of things. You talk about the positives of playing video games all day, and then you mix in, diet and exercise, and things are only going to get better. Like, things are only going to get better across the board.
Oh, I agree. I mean, well, especially if you're referring to people talking about, these new generation of adults for a living playing video games. Like, the thing is like, regardless of like what you're doing, right? Like, it doesn't even matter what you're doing. The position you're putting your body in physically is no different than what all these people working 9-to-5 office jobs.
Right.
I mean, and I mean, that alone, regardless again of what you're doing, I mean, you're probably much more stimulated than someone sitting there banging their head against a desk. So that's probably better, and you're probably happier. So that's probably better. But I mean, that's actually an interesting thing. We had a researcher come talk to us about when I was doing exercise physiology, and how like that next. Well, he got it wrong. The next epidemic was not sitting; it was Corona.
Yeah, might have swung and missed on that one.
Yeah, they said the next like obvious epidemic was going to be what we're seeing related to just your body in a seated position for so long.
Right.
But again, you're doing the same thing as those the same people. Like, everybody's doing the same thing. You're just sitting there staring at a screen, but like what is on the screen really doesn't. That's not really changing your overall health.
Right. Right.
So,
yeah.
I mean, other than you being happy.
Yeah, exactly. And
awesome.
And you touched on it a little bit, but one thing that I'm sure you know of and have heard of, but is really prevalent in this industry is mental health and your mental wellness. A lot of people that do this end up burning out really quickly. Because they're burning the candle at both ends, and they're unhappy. The anxiety starts to set in, and people are depressed and all kinds of things like that. Whereas, this is looked at as the dream job, right? You get to play video games, you get to do everything, but the people who don't take their body into account, like exercising, eating well, really end up in that mental state of depression and anxiety. Because for a little while there, man, I felt it too. I'm not one to brush that off and to write it off as that's not a real thing. But even for me, for a little while there, I could tell that I was not myself, in the sense of hey man, like you need to go fucking outside, like see the sun.
Yeah.
Like go
Yeah.
see the sun for like an hour, bro. Like come on, like do something.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy the impact that just a regular routine scheduled workout, again, nothing insane, but what that does for your overall mental wellness.
It's the foundations, right?
It is.
You can't build on those like little things of like having, the just happiness. I always think in general, I think, happiness is a mindset, ultimately if you really train yourself in a certain way. And, but I mean, you're never going to be able to train yourself in that mindset if you don't have those foundations of eating, get your body in a position to succeed, you know what I mean? And get your mind in a position to succeed physiologically, giving it the right nutrition, giving it the right rest, and giving it the right exercise.
Right.
And it's like you're asking too much otherwise. And all those plays a huge role into prevention as well. I mean, we talk about exercising our bodies all the time. I mean, the next thing I really have always wanted to do and is become consistent with like mental exercises. And that's, I meditate, every once in a while I've, gotten on a good run of meditating, but it's just like not something, I've ever had like a consistent enough schedule in the mornings to get adapted to.
Right.
But I mean, when I do that, I freaking love it. I mean, I run, it kind of gets that runner's high, and I kind of have like an own form of like active meditation with that. But I mean, man, there's never, it's kind of like a good nap, you never wake up, you're like, man, I wish I didn't have enough time to take that nap. You just like, wow, that felt amazing. And so I highly recommend trying that if anybody's out there having trouble or is out there and just their mind's racing a little too much. Just sit down. Headspace is a good app. They have some free ones. And just take 10 minutes of your time to just give yourself rest. And people, if you're religious, people tie in religion with that, which is great. I mean, it's just it's a thing that's worked for, it's documented, for thousands of years. And it's something that works. And, and it's becoming very popular. But, at the end of the day, we have to give our mind rest and exercise. And it kind of hits both of those points.
Of course. And a lot of people coming along with that word meditation, there's sometimes a lot of, there's like a negative connotation to that word, right? And what a lot of people immediately go to is, like the classic, like, like everybody's like sitting around with like cross legs and the whatever. But that's not the case, man. There's tons and tons of different forms of meditation. And when you talk about that hits home for me, because I try and do a form of quote meditation. And I think that there's many different forms of it, but it's putting your mind at rest and really just kind of, thinking about nothing, blanking out, kind of just really, taking a quick break. And for me, that is putting on a show that I've seen a million times. So like for me at night, whenever I before I end my day, I'll take a hot shower, and in my master bedroom, I've got a TV above like a fake fireplace, right? So I'll shut off all the lights, or I'll just have like one of the bed lights on, right? And I'll flip on that fireplace. It's like you flip it on and it's got like the fake fireplace look, it's got like the fire going. But then there's another button for the heat. I never use the heat, but and then I'll put on The Office, and I'll blank out and I'll sit on the floor and I'll do basic stretches. So, I'll go feet together straight out, feet together across, kind of touch, and then I'll stretch out my quads, my calves. I'll do my back, my arms. Just real basic, absolutely nothing to it. We're talking about 20 minutes, not even one episode of The Office, just blanking out, doing my own thing. And that puts me in a better mindset before I go to bed, right? To really kind of clear out the day that just happened, which in turn translates into better sleep, better restfulness, which also progresses and turns into better energy for the next day and the ability to hit the next day harder. And I love it.
No, I love it. I mean, and it's funny, you're kind of in the same position I am now, where it's like, I just haven't been able to fully commit to not doing anything. And, that kind of meditation, like I've done it, again, I've done it a few times, and, it's more of the times of need where I'm like, oh God, like I'm so stressed out, I need this. Versus prophylactically, meditating. So I didn't get to that point, but I kind of do a similar thing, like, oh, I got to run, so let me do that run and kind of meditate while I'm running, so I knock out with two birds with one stone. But I mean, I definitely, for that next step, I challenge you, just try to, one morning have your coffee, and if it's a nice day outside, just go sit outside and rest and really just try to shut down and start your morning off that way. I mean, it's a different, might not be for you, but it would be a good experience to just try it out.
Yeah, because you never know, man. If you've never done it, you never know what kind of impact it'll have on the day-to-day life.
I mean, in 10 minutes too, you know what I mean? Like, that's so quick. You could even, depending on what kind of coffee you're making, if you're doing like a French press, you could press that thing down, let it brew, and go meditate and come back. And
just go hang out and clear the mind space, right?
Yeah. Man.
I'm 100% on board with that.
Listen, let me keep you how it goes.
Well, exactly. Well, listen, dude, we have been at this for a hot minute. Well, I mean, 2 hours and 40 minutes as of right now, dude. It's crazy because it doesn't feel like that long at all, and I feel like I could probably keep talking for a little bit longer, but I didn't want to take up too much of your time. It truly, from the bottom of my heart, man, like, this has been such a great experience. I definitely want to have you on here in the future to chat a little bit more about things that are going on in the world around us right now as things progress or decline, hopefully progress. But dude, it's been awesome to have you. I know you don't have a whole lot of social media, but if there is any, actually, you know what? Before we get out of here, before we hop off, there was one thing that you and I talked about a little bit prior, which I don't care if we spend the next 2 hours talking about this, but one of the things that I did want to shout out and I did want to talk about was, you and a couple of friends have had a idea about talking about old video games in the past, like old games where you guys are playing and talk. Real quick, tell me about that, because I think it's super interesting.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, hopefully, we're running with it. I mean, at first it started off as, part of just gaming. We were just doing we tried it before with retro games and doing kind of a game club, just another thing to kind of bring us together and, chat it up.
Yeah.
And just, we playing all the multiplayer games, and we're just kept just seeing our backlogs grow and grow. And hopefully, right now we're just kind of making content, kind of doing it for ourselves, just kind of reviewing some games, chatting it up, kind of throwing in some extra little, once a month, chatting it up and kind of throwing in little curveballs for each other. Maybe, we got a little competition thing going, just kind of like not, just rolling with it and seeing where it takes us. Who knows if it'll get off the ground. If it ever does, I'll make sure to come back so we can do a little promo for it.
A little promo. But overall, what it is you guys are reviewing older games and kind of giving like the way that you described it to me was, whenever you would play a game or whenever you would see a game that was coming out that was brand new or coming up on the market, there was always like this game's a 4.5 stars, or this is a 5 out of 5 or a 9.5 out of 10. And the way that you described it was, well, what the fuck does that even mean? What is that number? What kind of scale does that number go to? And you guys had the idea of really breaking it down from 1 to 10 and really going in depth as to why you gave the score of each game and like really break it all the way down, which is awesome. Yes.
So we haven't made it too official yet, so I'm not wanting to go into too many details in case for some odd reason this podcast pops off and someone steals our idea and I'm shit on
patent pending, bro. Patent pending.
But we're so that's kind of the idea, especially because all reviews, for games are right when they come out.
Yeah.
You can't really look up a good review of a game that came out a while ago. As we're getting older, everybody's getting older, having, we have backlogs. That's always like the funny thing, like, I'll add it to my backlog, what I mean? You never get to it. So we kind of wanted to take the approach of, okay, what games are worth it now? What games held up? What games really shine? I mean, we've been playing games that, came out within a year as well. We're just, having fun and kind of using this as a creative outlet right now because I like writing. So it's been a fun outlet for me because I never thought I'd be able to, get involved in writing things for pleasure. But yeah, it's been great. And we have like our own, hopefully we go, public with it within a year or so. And, I'll update everybody more, but we kind of have our own rating system. We're not even doing the 1 through 10. People are kind of, we think people are too stuck on numbers.
Okay.
And where it's kind of left, the most reviews within a 7 to 8, 6 to 8, 7 or 8, really ballpark where everything gets. You see reviewers get absolutely hammered if they give a game a 6 that everybody else thinks should have been a 7. It's just like stupid.
Right.
So, so we went away from the numbers where we're going to be giving ratings that actually mean something. That makes sense. You know what I mean? That I say, oh, James, like this, you should play this game and you should, play because of this. And this is the rating because I think it should be ahead of all your other games. You know what I mean? It has a tangible meaning to it. And, we have a lot of good reviews, and I think it's fun that we have a few guys that are consistent. We have ways to influence each other to play each other's games so that we have some cross cover. It's been really fun. It's just been a fun thing we've been developing for like 3 months and working on in our spare time. And, that's some of the reasons I've been cruising through Halo. So.
Well, I truly am. I'm certainly very excited to hear and to see where this progresses. And obviously, I'm in your corner if there's any form of
we'll get you to guest review a couple.
Yeah, I'm definitely down with that. I'll definitely stream some and definitely play it out. But overall, man, I'm so appreciative of having you on the podcast and you coming out and talking with me and chatting with me by the way, this is the longest podcast I've ever had.
Really?
The longest one I've ever had, and I'm so excited. I'm so excited because truly I could if I didn't have to pee so bad right now, we could talk for a lot longer.
Yeah.
But listen, if there's anywhere that the people can follow you at or check you out at, please feel free. Like right now, now's your opportunity. I know, dude, you're not on social media. That's what I'm saying. I'm gonna have to shout out Kat on this and get Kat some followers or something like that.
I would love to help, and I love everybody. I'm glad anybody's enjoyed it. But like, that's so funny because you always hear the podcast, and he's like, "Yeah, you can find me at this website."
Can't find you anywhere. Well, hopefully by the next time that you're on the podcast, the next time we get you on your show, hopefully you figure it the fuck out, and maybe you're like, all right, it's time for me to jump on social media. But
you're gonna put me on the map, and I'm gonna start having personas.
But again, dude, truly, it means so much to me to have you on. It's been so insightful listening to the day-to-day stuff, man. It's great.
I'm glad you got to enjoy it, man. No, I had a great time. I mean, I'd love to do it again, and hell, I mean, next time we do it, it might be in person.
That's my ultimate. That's my ultimate goal is to be able to fund these podcasts in the sense of whatever I make from them gets dumped into more guests that show up that I can get out here on the show. So like it would be great to where if one of these things ever pops off and really like kind of shows it all off, was to be able to use that money to fly you out here. All right, you can stay at these places and come through, and we'll do a podcast for the day and take care of everything, take you out to dinner, that kind of thing. So hopefully soon.
It wouldn't be that much business.
Hopefully soon, man. Hopefully soon. Well, listen, man, again, I appreciate you coming on. It does mean a lot, and you and I will talk very soon.
Yes, sir. I appreciate it, man. It's been a good time.
Thanks, man. All right. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate y'all coming through.